This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Imbube, 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 ba, imbube, 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 ba, imbube, 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 oh, ba, imbube, imbube, imbube. That is Senzo wishing me a very happy birthday. It's wonderful to be with you on my birthday here. I'm 27 years old again today as we take you on a sunrise safari here in the Western Fringes of the great Kruger National Park. Please talk to us using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. This clown show will end fairly soon. We'll get on to some serious wildlife viewing. It's 13 degrees Celsius here, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. We're hoping for a bit more warmth today. And that is all I have to say for you from a housekeeping point of view. Let us have one last listen to Senzo Mkizo. Himbube, Himbube, off to Brent. Himbube, 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 Himbube.
Well, good morning, and a happy birthday to James Hondry. And of course, how else would James and Senzo bring in the morning but with a song? My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Dangerous Dave the Delectable on the back of the vehicle today. And we are looking for leopards. Remember, hashtag SafariLive if you have any questions for us. I know Tingana and Hosana were at the dam cam at around 8:30 last night, so we're going to do a big loop, see if we find any footprints. Hopefully they haven't meandered too far with those fat bellies. If we get no luck, we might go have a squiz for Tundi towards the eastern sections of the reserve. Now, of course, it is still bitterly cold. And James and I are having a discussion. Actually, James made a big statement. He walked in while we were making tea and coffee this morning and, "What happened to summer?" It is 13 degrees Celsius, which is 50-something Fahrenheit. I can't remember. And I made the mistake of wearing shorts again because I'm being positive. 55. Thank you, Kirsten. I'm being positive that summer's coming. I'm going to force it to come by wearing shorts and sandals till I'm right. But fortunately, I have a bright-coloured shuka to keep my leggies warm. But so far, it doesn't look like Hosana and Tingana came this way. So we'll head down towards Twin Dams to see if they went that way. Now, Tristan and I had a very fun town trip yesterday. We picked up the Comfies. Rachel says I would not do well in Wisconsin. It is bitterly cold. Rachel, I'm aware of how much I would suffer in Wisconsin. I think the coldest I've ever been is in Chicago. I was there for some meetings about safaris when I was still doing safaris, and hyena, and I went out for dinner that night, nearly died, went to the hotel, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and we couldn't open the hotel door because there was like 3 or 4 feet of snow up against it, and I had to cancel all my meetings. It was very inconvenient. Apart from being very inconvenient, it's very cold. Now, I think the thing I struggled with most in the very cold, and this was in February, which Chicago in February is not a warm place. The thing I think I struggled with a lot with the really cold temperatures in the States is if you've got the right kit, you're fine. But then you walk into an office for a meeting, and you got to take off all the layers because it's so hot, and then you got to put on all the layers before you go out into the cold again. What are you shouting about, testiculars? Have you seen a Hosanna cat? Or have you seen a bird of prey? Or are you just full of the joy of the morning? Okay, I'm going to keep going very slowly while the light's still a bit low, checking for tracks. While we do that, let's send you back to the birthday boy himself.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm not greeting you again, everybody. I am, well, good morning to you too, but we have come to the hyena den, and it would seem that old Corky is that Corky? I think it's Corky. Is here. No, it's not. That's not Corky. I think Corky. No, it is Corky. There's the little one. Look at the little one. There we go. No, that's not Corky. Her ears are much too good a condition, I think. And her belly is very, very full. Now, please excuse me. I know for some of you it'll be astounding that I don't know who that hyena is, but I'm really not very good at identifying them. Sorry, that is Corky. She's got the torn left ear. It is Corky, one of the dominant females, probably the matriarch, actually, of this clan now. And there's her little baby, very cute, very confident, and looks like a piece of meat that's been brought to the entrance of the den. That's very interesting. Is that not too precious for words? Hello, little hyena. Good morning. Sorry, the picture is quite dark, everybody. It is probably still a little bit dark for colour, which probably be in infrared, but we're not going to go into infrared. It's going to brighten up very nicely shortly. Oh, this is just wonderful. Perfect time to be here at the den. We'll see what else transpires. For those of you who haven't been here before, there is supposed to be another hyena here, slightly lower on the hierarchy than Corky, and that is Pretty. She's also got a cub here, or had a cub here. She may have moved, I don't know. But interestingly, that cub will be nervous of coming out with just the matriarch, or the very dominant Corky, and her already very confident and slightly domineering cub. And thank you all very much for your very kind birthday wishes. Yes, it's very nice to be 27 again. Very silent this morning. Not much in the way of birdsong because of the winter temperatures. Dory, we haven't named this cub yet, no. I'm sure that we can take on some names if you'd like to try and give them. It's quite early on to be naming this little cub, but we can do it. And there's some reason Jamie said that she can't be called Panda, or she or he can't be called Panda, because I think there's a panda. There's a panda up in the North Clan. And obviously one would call this one Panda for the reasons of her face being that of a panda. But the North Clan of Hyena and the Masai Mara has a panda. And so we can't call this one a panda. This one will have to be called something else. Or Senzo says Panda 1 and Panda 2. Well, I suppose that's possible. Panda South, Panda North. Look at that, isn't that sweet? It's so special to have a den here again. So confident. And I'm sure the other one is inside. Yep, down we go. Go and see if my friend is inside there. Bully him or her a bit. I I was watching a completely ridiculous series yesterday evening called Norsemen. This is a pretty disgusting and absolutely irreverent. Anyway, in the show, they use the term shim for she or him because if you don't know the difference, or if you cannot identify the gender of whatever you're talking about, and it's so much more convenient that saying him or her, because we don't know the gender of this little cub just yet, or the one inside. And so instead of saying he or she is now suckling, we could just say Shim is suckling. Maybe, says Kirsten, we should name it Shimmy. Shimmy's a good name. That's going to stick, you know that. Shimmy. Shimmy the hyena. I feel a storybook coming on. Carol G, you say you like Shim as a name. Well, I'm happy to go with Shim. I'm fairly ambivalent as to what name we choose, because that can get you into trouble. You know, if you pick the wrong name, people will quickly turn against you. So I'm happy to go with the general consensus. My only contribution to naming was to call Shongile and Hosanna George and Charlotte, after the royal prince and princess. That was quickly put to paid. Crystal, you say cork and shimmy. Yes, I think it works quite nicely. Thank you, Corky, for now exposing your enormously fat belly to us. She has eaten a lot in the very recent past. She's still nothing like as vast as Waffles, the North Clan hyena, who often looks a little bit like a wide-bottomed boat, I feel. Look how confident we are. Going to fall. This is going to result in... Oh, yes. Oh, very well dealt with. Now, that bit of meat at the entrance there is quite interesting. And we don't see meat being brought to the den except by dominant hyena. Mostly what happens is for the less than dominant ones, they will eat away from the den, convert that meat into milk, and then bring it back to the den, because that's the most effective way of making sure that their food doesn't get stolen. They can ensure that their food is given to their youngsters. But of course, with dominant hyenas like Corky, she can bring meat back to the den because no one will dare steal it from her or from her youngsters. I mean, meat for a tiny little cub like this is it's pretty early to be feeding this cub meat. You can see the cub isn't vaguely interested in chewing on the offered bit of carcass at the moment. And interestingly, Corky didn't really seem particularly keen to engage in nursing behaviour. I suppose she's had a tough morning out hunting. Now she's tired. Well, we'll wait and see what happens here for a little bit longer. I believe that Tristan is about to begin where Sensor did.
not exactly where Senzo did, and not exactly how Senzo did, but we are beginning atop a termite mound with an epic backdrop to the Sabi Sands. Now, it is a very, very big happy birthday to James. Of course, he says 27, but he was mistaken. He actually meant 57 years young, and so getting a little bit older as the days go by, Mr. Hendry. Anyway, it is a very warm welcome, like I say. My name is Tristan, and on camera I've got Sebastian this morning. And we are going to be out on a walk, which is going to be very, very good. We're going to try and see what we can find. We'll, I think, probably head down towards the dam cam, try and see if we can get onto Hosanna's tracks, and slowly probably head southwards from them. I believe they went southwards, so that's pretty much where we're going to aim. There's also those Ellies that were around with Jamie yesterday afternoon at the tent, so we might go scratch around for them a little bit, and well, generally just look for any signs of summer coming through. It's still chilly and cold, and I love how Brent has got the kind of optimism to wear shorts and slops. I'm pretty sure is going to be fairly chilly during the course of this morning, because it is not exactly warm out here. I'm hoping though when the sun comes up it will start to warm up enough that it'll at least be a bit more comfortable than what it is. But this sort of colder weather that we're having at the moment really isn't that pleasant. I'm not a huge fan of cold weather. I far prefer to be nice and warm, and listening to Brent talk about kind of the coldest he's ever been, I'm pretty sure Chicago can be one of the coldest places. I know many people that have been through. I haven't been there personally, but I know a lot of friends that have been there, and they say it does get absolutely freezing. So I'm hoping that, warmer temperatures are on the way for us. Certainly don't feel like being cold all the time, and it's the end of October. It's supposed to be warm now. It's not supposed to be, these cold, dreary conditions like what we've been having. So hopefully a bit of warm weather, and then proper rains will come, and it will kind of green up everything, and the proper summer will start. What is noticeable is that we are starting to see some sort of life with insects. Definitely a few more of them around at night. It was better when it was a bit warmer, but now that we've had these kind of 3 or 4 cold days that we've had, everything's sort of subdued again. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Hopefully, like I say, warm weather will come, big rain will come, and everything will start to grow, and well, the landscape will be transformed from this sort of dry, dusty area to this bright green, lush, emerald kind of field of trees and grass. Now, David, was it Tingana that you said? Kirsty, sorry, I couldn't hear you very nicely. James. Oh, Mr. Hendry will be less dominant as he gets older. Well, yeah, one does not want to speculate and start rumors, but you never know. As one gets a little older, the body starts to get a bit slower, the mind starts to go, and it becomes much harder to dominate out here. Of course, the other male vying for dominant position out here is also starting to age as well, in the form of Brent Leo Smith. He's not far behind Mr. Hendry, and both of them are, starting to get a little older, and so it'll be interesting to see who the new up-and-coming young gun is going to be within the team. Maybe Pat, who's arrived safely. By the way, Pat and Lauren arrived yesterday, for those of you that were wanting to know how their journey was. Brent and I went to go and fetch them yesterday from town, and they arrived, and I'm sure they are just going to try and take a day or two to recover. It was quite a long journey for both of them, so they are here safely. Maybe Pat will be the next up-and-coming sort of challenger to the throne, so we'll just have to wait and see. And Conrad, yes, Conrad, who has definitely been taking a leaf or two out of the current rulers of this area in the form of James. He trains with James, and one could say he's even being mentored in many respects. So James Hendry, you're going to have to watch your back with Conrad. He's getting fitter and stronger. Exactly. James is like Tingana, and Conrad is like Hosanna. He's coming for you, James. Be careful. They are quite funny to watch them run around, because Conrad often will try and kind of keep up with James. James smashes everybody still. Even though he's older, he smashes everybody when it comes to running. And Conrad is fast getting better and starting to kind of keep up for the most part with James, and apparently it's the last sort of third of the run that James just kind of pulls off. But both of them you know, the thing about them when they're running is both of them have low sense of gravity, and they just seem to be able to find a different gear to the rest of us. Steph can't stand it because he says it's impossible to keep up with them. So, you know, I think Conrad would be the next one to get through to the crown, should I say. Anyway, right, let's carry on. Let's see if we can find these tracks for Hosana, see where they went. While we do that, though, let's send you back across to the elder statesman and see what he thinks about the challenges coming for his reign.
I think the image of Conrad trying to get at the dinner table and me chasing him away and scoffing everything into my face before he can get at it is quite amusing. That's what would happen, of course, if I was like Tingana and he was like Hosana. I can see myself standing at the buffet table there, just shoveling food into my mouth and pointing at him every time he came close, maybe tossing him the odd piece of beetroot. I'm not going to do that, though. That would be very unkind. We're still sitting here at the hyena den with the Corky, whose baby is now being allowed to suckle. Shim is just behind Mother, but we obviously can't see that, and I can't move the car around there. I think that would make much too much disturbance, so we're just going to have to wait here and see if the little thing pops its head over the top. I am intrigued, though, to find out or see if Pretty is still here, or if Pretty's baby is still here, and if the little one will come out while Corky is here, without her mother being around. We watched an interaction the other day when both Pretty and Corky were here, and this little cub here spent a lot of time playing with both adults, or trying to, and the other one, who is bigger than Corky's, was only prepared to come out and be around her mother, and was very nervous every time Corky approached the den. No, Philip, it's not. Gwen used a den site way down to the south of the reserve. We're now actually in the way northwest, sorry, and Gwen had one pretty much on the southeastern corner. That's the last one that I saw. We think Gwen has shuffled off this mortal coil, unfortunately, leaving this. Well, she was never a dominant female, old Gwen, but I'm not sure how big this clan is anymore. If we had slightly more traversing area, or slightly different traversing areas, we'd be able to follow them much more closely. But I don't think you ever are able to follow hyenas here in the Lowveld like you can in the Masai Mara, and that's simply because they don't seem to centre quite as much on a den site here, certainly in my experience, and also they don't hunt in the same way, they don't forage in the same way. They forage very individually here, as opposed to in those big groups in the Mara. And that's just got to do with the difference of prey availability and also the habitat. And so here it's quite difficult to form very clear pictures of what's going on. Oh, there we go. There's the little one. Just the dominance in hyena cubs begins the day they are born. Now, we know the stories of canism or siblicide, where some hyena litters, especially those born to dominant matriarchs or dominant females within the hierarchy, will kill their siblings. They're born with teeth. It's difficult to understand why they'd be born with teeth unless it was for weaponry, because, of course, well, while this one is having a little bit of a go at that meat, like most mammals, they're dependent on milk. And unlike most predators, these chaps are dependent on milk for much longer than most of the other predators by about, in the case of the hyena, they will suckle for about a year, whereas lions and leopards are done by about 3 months. So it's difficult to understand why they would be born with teeth if it wasn't for their use as weapons. So yes, they do kill each other, and their dominance begins from birth, like I was saying, and sometimes it extends to killing their siblings, not always, and most frequently with more dominant hyena's offspring. But you can see that this one, if you were to watch this one with the bigger cub that's living in the same den, you can immediately see that this little thing is much more dominant, much more confident, and so it happens pretty much from birth. Aegis. It's fascinating. Apparently we are now going to do what is known as the unscheduled broadcast. In other words, I'm going to shut up. Briefly. Good morning, everyone who's just joined us here at this very special little hyena den in the Western Kruger Park. That is a tiny hyena of roughly 3 weeks old, maybe 4, but I think probably closer to 3. And we're sitting at the den site with her or him and him or her's mother. My name is James Henry. Please talk to us over the course of this little broadcast. You can send us your questions or your comments. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Let's go back and have a look at them and see perhaps if the little one comes out again. I hope that that's not the last view that we're going to get of this little cub. That is Corky. She is the dominant female, or the matriarch, of the Djuma clan of hyena. We find ourselves on Djuma Private Game Reserve, so that's why this hyena is matriarch of the Djuma clan. And also in this den site we have got another cub who's a little bit older, probably about 6 weeks old now, and she or he has yet to come out because she or he was born to a much less dominant female, or slightly less dominant female should I say, and has much less confidence than the little black cub that we've just seen. Now I shall be very disappointed if this little thing has decided that that is it. We especially started the broadcast because she was being very cute indeed. There's a bit of meat there at the entrance that would have been brought there by Corky, the dominant female. So she clearly had a very large meal last night. She arrived back with an enormously fat belly, and obviously brought a bit of a takeaway home for her new cub. She's been nursing all morning, and now that we've brought this to you live, she's decided that she's had enough of nursing. Let's just give it a minute or two. I'm pretty sure the little one will come out again. Well, Susie, that is the joy of technology. It's completely beyond my intellectual understanding, but yes, what a joy to be able to watch this from your apartment live. You can be transported into the bush from anywhere in the world, into the African wilderness, and see all the amazing stories unfolding here. The only sadness really is that we can't be everywhere all the time, because there are so many of these stories going on everywhere. This particular story is not playing out quite like we hoped it would, because now the cub seems to have disappeared into the den. Let's give it another 60 seconds, and if it doesn't come out, we'll let you all carry on with your day. Come on, out you come. Michael, you say you love hyenas. I think anybody who spends time at these den sites would start to agree with you, Michael. Many, of course, most of them educated by the Lion King, which may have been a triumph of animation, but was a travesty of biology. They would think that hyenas were nasty, scheming, conniving creatures, but anybody who spent time at the den, she's going to call the little one out now, anyone who spent time at the den would agree that they are very special. Let's just see. She's making a little grunting noise. Come on. We don't have all day, Corky. We're on a broadcast schedule here. Yes? It's so close, everybody. I feel we should wait a little bit longer. Come on. Call her out, Corky. You may notice me saying he or she because we don't really know whether it's a male or a female yet. My guess is that it's a female. Casey, the oldest member of this hyena clan, I really couldn't tell you. I think it's possibly Corky, but I'm not sure. It's very difficult to tell. Come on. Corky's now... Oh, it's a buffalo leg. Wow. Okay, well that's why Corky's looking so very fat. A buffalo died sometime yesterday evening, I suspect. And that... well, that is its... That... Wow. Yes, that's very special. That is its radius ulnar... Basically, its wrist joint and its metacarpals. And down into the den... Now don't put it in there, take it out. Trying to encourage the little one to eat meat. I mean, like I say, hyenas will suckle for a year. And so at 3 weeks or so, it's quite early for the little one to be eating meat, but they are born with teeth. Now I think she's put the takeaway in and now she's going to go off probably to get something to drink. Oh well. I don't think much is going to happen from here. So we'll leave you. We'll sit here probably for a few more minutes, and if you'd like to keep watching our safari, we do have 2 other people out here in the Western Kruger. We've got Tristan on foot, tracking a leopard, and Brent driving around, tracking a leopard. Until next time, bye-bye. Alright everybody, I'm just going to drive around the other side of the den. I can hear Corky going bleh, bleh, bleh. In the meantime, let us go and find out if Leo Smith has had any luck.
Apart from freezing, I don't have any updates. So actually, I lie, I do. I went and spoke to Tristan. We bumped into Bushwalk. Both of us have not managed to find any tracks to the south of the dam. So I'm going to have a quick look around Gallagher Pan, see if there's anything there. And Tristan's going to have a quick look at the last sort of position of that carcass, see if there's anything there. And we're just hoping for the sun to pop out already. Because it is bitterly cold at the moment. Ah, at least there is an animal, Darby, a heartbeat. A heartbeat? Oh, I see it there, Dave. How's that? So when? There. David is blind, and he was struggling to see the kudu, nipping on all the little fresh shoots coming out. They're so small we can't even see them, but you can just pick up a little bit of green if you look carefully where that kudu is munching away. See, she's trying to find the tiniest little... Oh, he's going for a whole branch there. You go, girl. Oh, especially since it's nice and cold. It's a very good time of the morning to just sit and listen for a little bit, because the sound will carry further. So if there is an alarm call, Hopefully we'll hear it. There's also a strong possibility that Tingana and Hosanna are so fat they're just flat somewhere. There's such beautiful antelope. Oh, what's that? Okay, I'm going to listen for a little bit longer. In the meantime, Tristan's got lots of interesting things on the floor to show you.
We do have lots of interesting things on the floor. Unfortunately, it's rather macabre because it's definitely where some poor bird met a rather sticky end. And so you can see lots and lots of feathers that are kind of spread out. They're not spread out in a massive distance. These feathers have actually been here for about 2 days. I saw them 2 days ago, and it was a much tighter grouping of feathers. But with the wind and, you know, what has been blowing over the last 2 days, it's kind of caused a lot of these feathers to be blown about a little bit. Now, normally when you get feathers that are congregated like this, it's either a bird that's fed on the ground, or it's something like a genet or a civet that could have potentially fed on them. Generally, they'll pluck very, very close to where the actual carcass is, and the feathers don't get spread nearly as much. If it was something like a raptor that had caught this bird and taken it up into a tree, plucking a bird up in a tree means that the feather distribution is huge, particularly because of when we have windy days. You'll find that the feathers get blown all over the place. So this bird was actually plucked down on the ground itself, which doesn't necessarily rule out a predatory bird. We know that sometimes things like martial eagles, African hawk eagles, they will feed on birds like this, and they will actually be able to pluck them on the ground itself before they fly off. So sometimes that is the case. I somehow surmise that this was probably not done by that. I'm going to go with maybe another type of animal. There is a track that comes in here that could indicate what it is. So if we have a look just here, in amongst all of the kind of chaos and going towards the chaos, you'll notice that there's a few little toes that come around like that, and a little pad at the back here. So this would be for a civet that you've got. You can see just by this toe over there that it's a civet. Very, very, very perfectly round toe, and then another one on this side, and then the pad coming back, and then the middle toe is a little bit more oval shaped. Now these guys, as much as they do eat sort of things like berries and the likes, they will also go after birds, so they are omnivorous, and this could very well be a civet's doing. Now, what type of bird it is that was killed is very tricky to know. The feathers themselves are kind of black and white, so they've got these black tips to them, and then this sort of white and a bit of barring inside there. Now, that could be a number of different birds, but given the length and size of the feather itself, I mean, you can see it in comparison to my hand, it is quite long. So this is a fairly substantial sized bird. It's not a very, very small bird, which rules out quite a lot. And so my guess would be for this is that it's one of these guys. So if you have a look there, there is a yellow-billed hornbill. And so, I mean, it's not a perfect match, but potentially could be one of these guys. So that's what I would think, just given on the sort of size of this particular bird, and given the sort of the feather length, that's what I would imagine it could be. But yellow-billed would be what I guess. The red-bills have more of a white towards the tip of the wings that will make it, you know, a little easier to establish. Now, we also have not found a single track for these leopards at all, so nothing for Tingana, nothing for Hosanna. We checked down the drainage line in the Mulwati behind the dam wall, and so what we're doing is we're just coming back to where the kill was yesterday, and we're just going to try and kind of see if there's maybe any sign of Hosanna returning back here. You never know, maybe there was some scraps that he's going to come back to. Also, just to kind of go and have a little look at the evidence that gets left behind after a kill. You know, it's obviously 2 days of leopard activity in that area of carcass that was there, and so it's going to be nice to go and check the trees, see the claw marks, maybe just see if there's anything interesting that's been left behind that we can kind of have a look at. So that's the plan, and then from there, if we don't find anything, we'll try and kind of maybe cut back southwards and just see if we missed a track somewhere and try and see if we can get onto Hosanna's trail. If Tingana went northwest, I wouldn't be surprised he's gone quite far. So albeit there might have been a yellow beak in that mess of feathers at one point, But you must remember that, like I said, that's 2 days old, so that would have been smelling, and things like civets, genets, hyenas might have picked that up and carried it and eaten the skull and then dropped it somewhere else in the bush. You know, it's often the case when you find bird carcasses like that, is that you won't actually find the head or the skeleton or the feet or anything, because those all get carried off and eaten and crunched down, and the beak itself gets sometimes distributed way away from where those feathers are. It just depends on what that animal did. You might find that animal plucked it and then picked it up and walked off a little bit and then ate it in the grass just beyond where we were. Could be anything really where it could have gone. So, you know, when it's a very fresh one, yes, so obviously when it was very killed, you might find some sort of sign of these kind of, the beak at least. But as soon as it gets a little bit older and it's a few days like that, it very much kind of becomes easy, or becomes difficult to find where that bull is, and could be a lottery as to which way it's been dragged, and you know, from the actual original kill site. Right, now we'll head off slowly. The kill wasn't too far from where we are. In fact, it was just up ahead here, and so we'll go and have a little scratch around. There's some Egyptian geese making lots of noise. They also know it's James Hendry's birthday, and so they're wishing him a birthday, or happy birthday too. And talking about James, let's send you back across to him, see what his plans are now that he's left the hyena den.
I think that checking out the old kill site is a very good idea, because I think that there was still quite a lot of impala meat left in that saffron tree, and well, we know that Tingana is not one to leave a meal alone, so he may well go back to it. We are on our way towards Buffelshoek Dam now. That's in the northeastern corner. And we'll see if they didn't perhaps pop down there for a bit of a drink. Well, we know they didn't actually. We know they went to the main Juma Pan for a drink. But Thandi and Tlalamba were around Buffelshoek Dam yesterday morning, and so maybe we'll be lucky there. Good morning. There is an eagly over there. Tunicat, I would like to see Thandi, Tlalamba and a pack of wild dogs for my birthday. That would be ideal. So that is a pale form Wahlberg's eagle, looking a bit bedraggled. I don't know which Wahlberg's pair it belongs to. But even though you can just see the silhouette, it's very obviously a Wahlberg's from that little crest on the back of its head. The martial eagle also has a crest on its head, but it's much larger, the crest and the bird. The bird itself is huge. Almost twice that size. There's also a waterbuck slinking through the bush just underneath it. You see it there, Senzo? It's very, very nicely camouflaged. Yes, you got it. You got it. And interestingly, all you can see of that waterbuck is the following mechanism. The white circle. But if you didn't know that there was a waterbuck there, well, I think you'd be quite confused. I don't think you'd be confused, I just don't think you'd see anything. Unless you knew that it was there. Almost impossible to see. They, to me, are the best colour for camouflage out here. Just listening. Here's some fairly irritated grey go-away birds, not too far from where we are now. They might be shouting at one of those leopards. Right, shall we press on? I think we should probably press on. To Buffelshoek Dam. Oh, some tracks on the road. What are these funny tracks? Oh, there's civet. Okay, so there's some civet tracks here. We shan't follow the civet. Leo Smith is also following some tracks.
Welcome back. We've had tracks of Asana heading towards one of his favourite little river systems. So unfortunately it is an impenetrable system. So we're just going to have a quick look see if hopefully maybe he's just lying up on the edge of it and not in it. And the only place we can do that is from on these power lines here that we're driving down. He's been spending quite a bit of time in this area. Let's see, do we have any tracks here? Negative. So there's a whole myriad of little dongas. Now a donga is a lugger, which is a sort of dry, small river system that's got quite steep banks. So the Moati is a small little river. This is a drainage system, a donga, that unfortunately we cannot actually drive into. But he loves this area. Nope. Unfortunately, no sign of him. Now, Tristan was talking about the potential threats that the dominant males at Djuma have. Now, the one thing about James and myself, when you've been at the top as long as we have, as the original dominant coalition of males, we've learned a few dirty tricks to stay at the top. So, youngsters, beware. Now, while we are looking for our little chief, or possibly Tingana. Oh. There's tracks of him coming out there. We've just come through there. Oh dear. Okay, so just listening there, we got an update from Rex. The track's actually come out now and is heading more towards the north. So we're going to edge our way that way. And what was I saying? Oh, quiz time. Yes, quiz time. Yes. Well, copy, thanks, Rex. What are we going to quiz today, David? What hair product does David use to keep his hair lush? No, let's not do that. That's boring. So a James Hendry quiz for his birthday is an excellent idea from Kirsten McLennan Smith. How many push-ups does James Hendry do a day? Hashtag SafariLive if you know the answer. That's a good one. I'm only teasing, of course. Let's think of a good James Hendry quiz. I've got a very good one. On Djuma, what is James Hendry's favorite bird? Hashtag SafariLive if you know the answer. On Djuma, what is James Hendry's favorite bird? Hashtag SafariLive if you know the answer. I think it's great. Let's make it a James Hendry drive. I will also tell you some stories about James in the past. Some he might not want us to share, some he might want us to share. I'm going to have to think about some good ones. In the meantime, let's send you across to Tristan, who's investigating the next crime scene.
Indeed, so we've come to where Hosanna and Tingana spent the better part of yesterday, or most of yesterday actually, just to come and have a little look and see what was around and see what was left behind by our two big fat leopards. And you can see that we've got a lot of fur more than anything else. And I was just saying to Sebastian, it's actually really amazing to look at Nyala's fur. I mean, some of this will of course come from the tail area and some of it from the body itself, but the hair is very, very long. If I put maybe my hand, I don't know, where do you want me to go? Here, Seb. That's fine. So if I put my hand there, it'll give you an idea of just how long this fur actually is. Now, often we think about animals when it's cold like this, we talk about how we're cold, and it's very difficult for us to be able to actually kind of stay warm. But you can realize very quickly why things like Nyala are able to cope out here even in the winter months. This long fur like this would most definitely be insulating these guys incredibly well, and it would keep their body temperature nice and warm. And so normally this fur will kind of lie quite flat up against the body, but as soon as they get cold, then they sort of lift the fur up, and that will trap more air and will stay a little bit warmer. Now, a lot of this fur that we're seeing around here is like I say, is tail fur, which will be slightly longer, but it goes without saying, even up in the tree itself, I found lots of strands of hair that were of sort of equal length. Now, the tree that it was in is right above me, obviously. So it's this big tree that we had here. And so Tingana would have been sitting up above where we're standing right now. And you can see there's still a little bit of kind of meat left up in the tree. There was a small, tiny little bone that's up there. But other than that, they really didn't leave very much. Hyenas have pretty much cleaned up everything that fell to the ground. We haven't found a single bone on the ground itself. What we did find, other than this, was a very, very nice surprise that one of our leopards left us. I would imagine that this must be Tingana that left this delightful present behind for us to come and have a little look at. And it's this big pile of dung. As you can see here, that is what a Nyala looks like when it's been through the internal organs of a leopard. It's kind of, probably not the Nyala actually, that might have been the Impala that's kind of come out, and a bit of the Nyala. But what you can see is that it's very dark in coloration, almost black, and that's because of the blood content that's inside there. This would have been, quite a fresh kill that he ate, and there was a lot of blood within it, and this means that it gets a very black consistency. It's also quite loose. If you look at the back end here, it's quite sort of runny in that area, and that's again all that kind of blood that's within the system itself. Now, I would break it up normally if it was a little bit older, but this is still quite fresh. You can see it's a little bit wet there, which means that it does not smell very pleasant at all, and I don't really feel like breaking it apart to get that nice whiff of leopard dung. But this is definitely where he would have gone to the toilet. He would have then from here moved off and probably left. Normally this kind of defecation, and especially if you look at the freshness of this, would have been done sort of when he gets down from the tree and has been up there for quite a while. So I would say this is probably from yesterday evening, not from early this morning, that's for sure. We know he left here around 8 o'clock anyway, so it would have been from probably about that time as he came down, defecated, and then so he's walked off. But it's amazing to me that a Nyala of that size is broken apart and kind of completely consumed within, so about, I would say, like 36 hours basically that was consumed. And it's incredible to see how these kind of animals are able to do it. Obviously it was 4 different leopards and a hyena that fed off it, but still it was consumed rather quickly. Christy, no, it doesn't smell very pleasant at all, and so that's why we're going to not sit there for too long and stand over it for too long. It's got a really nice sort of, what can we call it, almost rotten flesh smell to it, mixed in with the kind of poop smell. So it really is quite delightful. Now, I was going to walk forward here, but there's no way I think that I'm going to get Seb through this. So Seb, let's try and go around this. Ray, you said it's number 4 in your poo list. Are you right there, Seb? Yeah. You see, this is what we're talking about. Seb has got a bit of a tough time here because there's lots of trees around, so we're going to go round a little bit. Ray, you've got a poo list. Well, always nice to have a scatalogue, and you can keep track of all the scats that you have and see, and all the different poops that we go across. But number 4, we'll have to increase that quite a bit. There's a lot that you might be missing. In fact, I would like to know, Ray, which ones do you have? Maybe we can give you a couple more as we go through this morning's kind of walk, because it's a good time to look for poo as we're on a walk. It sounds really odd, but it's true. I don't really think that you would say that many times in life, is that you're going to go look for poo when you're walking. Anyway, right. Apparently Birthday Boy is also on the search for things that, well, cause poo.
Well, just about everything out here will cause poo of some sort. Well, all animals here will cause poo. Plants don't poo, of course. Plants are very good at not pooing. Not sure why it is that plants are able not to poo and all animals have to poo. These are some of the things that one ponders while driving around the game reserve. This is, of course, a young Nyala bull. Very young. Its horns have yet to do their first spiral. If I was him, I would suggest trying to find some friends fairly soon. Let me just reverse back a little bit. There we go. And this particular Nyala looking for green forbs on the ground. And not too far from where Tingana pilfered all of the meat. And so Tristan's probably only about a quarter of a mile away. And everything very peaceful this morning. And unseasonably cold, and so unseasonably silent. You hear the lovely call there of the black-collared barbet. Yes, Sarah, I suppose you might say that falling leaves were plant poo. Yes, quite possibly. They do fertilize the ground when they rot as compost, much in the same way that the dung of that Nyala will fertilize the ground over which he walks. But all animals will produce waste, and they will use it too for various things. In the case of the poor scrub hare, he has to re-eat it. In the case of he uses it for defense. He will poop on your hand if you pick him up, which is disgusting. Oh dear, we've lost signal. Apparently we're going to do the me quiz.
James is going to love this. But it sounds like almost all of you know James very well, because indeed we can actually how perfect is that? Sassy and many others said white-browed scrub robin. I can hear one calling. Well done, guys. There's a couple of them calling. Okay, we're still on the hunt for Hosana or Tingana. Last male leopard tracks were heading in this general direction, so we're just going very slowly again, making sure we don't lose or miss or drive over them. And we're going to go slightly off tangent here from the James Henry quiz. We will do another James Henry quiz before I send you off again. And I'm trying to remember that saying. Maybe Kirsten can remember it properly. It's repeating, doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result is a sign of idiocracy, insanity. Thank you, Kirsten. So, doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result is a sign of insanity. So, Dangerous Dave is insane. So there's a couple of very simple rules when you live in the bush, and one of them, and Dave is learning this the hard way. This is the second time, isn't it, Dave, that this has happened to you? And that is, if you leave your shoes outside, the hyena will take them. So David is lost. Where's your phone, David? I want to see the picture. Okay. Let's have a look. So, David, someone has gone past David's room this morning, and he left his bushwalk boots outside. And now, there is one. The other one is gone. The hyena has taken the other of Dave's boots. Don't leave your shoes outside if you live in the bush. They will be stolen by a hyena. So we must have a look out for Dave's boot at the den. We can see if the cub is going to be playing with it. It's going to be its new toy. There was a buffalo hoof at the den, but no shoe. Maybe the shoe's still migrating towards the den. Okay. What was that? Ah, yes. Well, maybe it's a cuddly toy for the cub on the inside of the den. Now, there's also a strong chance that on bushwalk or on drive we will find a half-eaten boot somewhere. But here we go. Now back to James Henry, the birthday boy. I'm not 100% sure on this answer, so I'm gonna actually have to check with him to see if what I think it is correct. But the next James Henry quiz is, what is James Henry's favorite tree? Hashtag SafariLive. I'm not 100% sure, and I think I know James quite well. I think I have an idea, but I'm not 100% sure at all. Now, let me tell you a story about James Henry. Many moons ago, to the south. Okay, I have the answer now from James's favorite tree. I was wrong, but now I have the answer. But many moons to the south, on the banks of the Sand River, James Henry and I worked together. And James Henry was in charge of a bunch of trainee rangers. Some you have met. Byron was one of them. But James has a particularly, let's just say a je ne sais quoi. And so what happened is, we all know how fit James is. He's very, very fit. And what he would do is all the trainees would arrive from Johannesburg, from Durban, from wherever they might have been from, and they would be made to feel very welcome. They'd be given apple juice and a big braai, lots of food. Then the next morning, James Henry would wake them up at an obscene hour, after some of them might have partaken in 1 or 2 apple juices too many. And he would say, "We are going on a walk." And off he would tromp, and he would give them, they all used to have to carry an ash bag, or a bag of sand that weighed about 8 kilograms, which is the weight of a rifle, which we used to have to carry on walks all the time. And off they would disappear into the wilderness. And James would walk them quite long and quite far and quite fast, as well as barking, "What tree is that? What bird is that? What grass is that? What's that? What's that?" And obviously doing the training stuff. He would then walk them back towards the lodge, and you could see the relief on their poor little faces after walking many kilometers. And he would walk them onto one of the entrance roads to the lodge, and then walk them straight past it and keep walking. And sometimes, I think the record was, he did it 2 or 3 times in a single day. And also the funny thing about trainees when they arrive at new jobs is they arrive with lots of brand new things. And one of the biggest mistakes most trainee guides do when they arrive is going to have to wait, because James has got a Janet.
We have got a genet, and we found it because there are squirrels going absolutely crazy here. A genet will eat squirrels, and I've never seen one at this time of the day sitting in a tree like this. This is very, very special. And I think it thinks that we can't see it, or that if it moves it will become that much more obvious. So I suspect it was probably raiding a nest of some sort over here, possibly a squirrel's nest. Now the genet, for those of you who don't know, is a mongoose type animal. Although it looks like a cat, it is not a cat in the slightest. It is much more closely aligned with the mongoose than it is with the cats. And if you look at its head, you can sort of see what I mean. The squirrels are very, very upset, and they'll eat just about anything that they can overpower. It really is very special. Now that is the large spotted genet, as opposed to the small spotted genet, which in theory we should also get here. I've never seen one here though. And you can tell quickly by looking at the base of the tail, which in this case is black. And on the small spotted genet, you'd have a little white patch at the bottom. It's completely and utterly motionless. Still trying to decide if it's been spotted or not. Liz, I don't think it is hurt. It does look a little bit like it's stuck in the tree. I'm pretty sure it isn't. I think it was just caught by us as we came around the corner. And so now it's just a little bit nervous to move because they're very secretive. They do tame quite nicely, so I mean, if they get used to you, they can become very relaxed. And in fact, they live in suburbia quite successfully. When I was living in Johannesburg, I was having dinner with a friend one evening, and in fact there are a whole lot of us having dinner in a very suburban part of Johannesburg, and in a creeper somewhere above the veranda where we were sitting, somebody said, "There's a genet." I all said, "Rubbish, it can't be a genet, it's a house cat from next door or something." And we went and looked, and sure enough, it was one of these chaps in the middle of Johannesburg. Apparently Kirsten used to have one at her house in Westville, Durban. Excuse this noise, I'm just trying to fix my microphone, which is spiking me on the head. Lily, aged just 7 years. I can't tell if that's a boy or a girl. They are very similar when you look at the boy genet and the girl genet. So, Shim, it will have to be as well. Looks like it's just hanging there, like it's been placed. You can hear the squirrels are very upset. I was hoping for a leopard when I heard them shouting like this, but this genet is very special. The last time I saw a genet at Buffelshoek Dam, it was dead, and we had a good look at it. Just dropped dead next to the shore, and no one would eat it. I think a battalier eventually ate most of it. So this chap very much alive. Yes, Kelly, it does. And it's when you look at its ears, you say it looks like it's got teddy bear ears. It does. But when you look at its ears that you realize how unlike a cat it is. Looks much more like a mongoose ear-wise, I think. I'm just going to quickly see South African large spotted genet. Just going to see if I can't find a list of things that it eats, because they do eat a lot of different things. Habits, food. Mice, insects, augmented by reptiles, invertebrates, and wild fruits. Oh, and they will also go for carrion, apparently, so they'll not above taking dead animals. They apparently like fly maggots. That's very delicious. Insects and ants mainly. And ants, yes. No, insects and mice, sorry, murids, mice. So basically they will eat anything that is vaguely meatish, and sometimes a little bit of fruit. That's pretty much the diet of Brent Leo Smith. Anything made of meat and a little bit of fruit. And Conrad. Yes, well, Conrad's very similar, except he doesn't eat any fruit. It's just meat. What's that?
He drinks fruit.
He drinks fruit, yes, he does drink fruit. That's a very good point. Robert, I'm not sure that anyone can answer that question. I think it's got very good eyesight. I imagine that its eyesight will be exceptional at night. Of course, they're supposed to be nocturnal, so seeing one out in the day like this is very unusual, and so they'll see in black and white largely. So not black and white, they're colorblind, so in greens and blues. So I suspect that very similar to something like an African wildcat. And of course they have to search up in amongst the branches, so their hearing is probably that much better, because they use it a lot up in the branches to find and hear little scuffling things at night. Although that said, if they're eating mice most of the time, I mean, there are lots of different species of mice, they're obviously moving around in the grass quite a lot, and again their hearing there will play a hugely important role. Misty, they normally live in tree holes. That's where you'd find them resting. Not in burrows, as far as I'm aware. I'm just going to quickly check if they do sometimes live in burrows. I've certainly never seen one in a burrow, obviously. Nocturnal, it says almost exclusively, and any activity during daylight hours is atypical. Well, I've told you that, haven't I? Resting places an hour or two after sunset and continue to be active until about 1 or 2 o'clock. The resting places are holes in trees, hollow logs, under tree roots, or in disused aardvark or spring hare holes, under piles of boulders or rock overhangs, or in caves. In fact, in any ready-made substantial shelter of this sort. So they will go into termite mounds. They don't dig themselves a burrow, but they will certainly use other burrows. So that's interesting. I've only ever seen them in tree holes. Stacked hay bales, apparently, as well. Well, we have a comment from someone called Jeanette. Well, Jeanette, obviously your spelling is not quite the same as Janet, but perhaps you are a Janet, tweeting us and saying its legs must be almost asleep by now. I often think that of a few creatures out here when they kind of get caught in the act, if you like, or when they just don't want to move. Tingana was a prime example yesterday, sitting in his tree, refusing to get out of it and sleep on the ground because he didn't want anyone else to have his meat. I just think that their pain thresholds are so much higher than ours, and their response to pain and their response to strain on their muscles and bones is so much less, what shall I say, enthusiastic than ours. We will do anything we can to avoid pain, whereas I think that these animals kind of accept it as part of their lives. I mean, obviously they don't like being sore, but their ability to deal with pain far, far higher than ours, especially when you watch them climbing around in thorn trees and trying to deal with bashing into each other and escaping from things. I've watched, when you watch something like a nyala or an impala having a fight, I mean, really they must go through a substantial amount of physical trauma without seeming to show any ill effects. Right, well, this was a very special sighting. I think I'm going to leave it now because I'm feeling a little bit bad, like the fact we're here is stopping it moving. Connie, babe, you want to know how big the genet is exactly? It is exactly, well, this one particularly looks to me to be about 1.5 feet from head to base of tail, and then to tip of tail probably about 2.5 feet. That tail is very long, maybe even 3 feet. but I'll tell you exactly what the measurements say. Total length, yeah, about 3 feet. About 850 to 1,020 centimeters. That's the males, and the females are actually slightly larger. Yeah, about 3 feet long. Alrighty, from one spotty thing in a tree to another spotty-ish thing that likes to eat in trees.
Ha 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 ha. As you can see, yes, James, we are with a lofty animal that likes to feed on the tops of trees, but not in a tree itself, because if it was feeding in a tree, it would be a bit awkward. Anyway, there's a giraffe bull that we're sitting with at the moment. We've been sitting like the Jennets, frozen, so that the giraffe bull would stay and not run away, and luckily it has stayed, and it has given us a somewhat good view of it. They are very difficult animals to actually approach in some respects. They're very curious, and so they often will stare at you and kind of look at you, but they can be difficult in that they see you from so far away that if you're not careful about the way that you approach and not sort of watchful and try and kind of keep your movements quite slow and steady, then often they can bolt and move away from you, and you kind of end up just chasing their tails all the time. But this particular one, because we sat down now and we're stationary and sitting still, it's decided that we are quite interesting, and so it stopped to stare at us. Of course, this was Ralph's theory, is that the rolling Ralph would be able to kind of attract giraffe in, and I'm pretty sure that if you did roll here, you might find that it would come towards you, but obviously we're not going to be doing that. For me, if you just sit down, it works quite well too. They tend to sort of look at you if you're just sitting on the ground and taking it very easy. There's very seldom that you're ever going to do an approach or even bump into giraffe and not be seen by them. They are very, very good at being able to kind of see you and being able to spot you from a long distance, in fact, much longer distance than what you're going to see them, given that they're so tall and they're quite keen sort of eyesight that they've got. It allows them to be able to kind of pick us up from a long way. So we've kind of just been sitting here watching it. Now, I don't see any others. We've had lots of giraffe around recently. We've had a lot of kind of mixed groups and quite a few bulls that have been hanging around, but it looks like just this one by itself. In fact, we were kind of alerted to it because of the oxpeckers that were disturbed, and then this guy was just kind of standing and watching us and seeing us come through the bush, and so it seems like he's by himself. I don't see any other heads poking out of the trees. It's quite a kind of open section that we're in, and that means that we should theoretically be able to have seen others if they were here. It isn't uncommon though to see just these kind of lone males like this. Giraffe often have probably the loosest social structure out of all of our animals, and so you'll find that there will be bulls on their own, sometimes bulls together, mixed groups, just females, so they have a very, very kind of fluid social system. There's no dominance that really takes place. They're not territorial. They'll just move around as and when food comes out, and I'm pretty sure that these guys are really kind of looking forward to the fact that we are going to start seeing a change in the kind of conditions. We're going to hopefully start to see things like green leaves coming up. Now, our giraffe is starting to move off, and so we're not going to follow it any further. It was very kind to sit and watch us for a while, and so we got a nice view of it, and so we're going to let it carry on. Don't want to disturb a giraffe. Giraffes, I always feel kind of a little bit sort of scared of when going towards giraffes, and not from a danger to myself point of view, but I'm always worried that they get panicked and that they run and then one trips over and then I'll feel seriously bad. So whenever they move away from us, I always try and kind of let them go and let them do their thing and not really worry too much about kind of following them too far. They obviously are lofty animals, and when panicked, if they do fall over, it can be a bit of a kind of damage that can be done to them. So we'll just leave him there, and we're going to carry on our mission to go and see if we can find the little chief, see where he's gone to. Seems as though he's been doing circles around camp, and there's been lots of kind of tracks going in all different directions, and it's a bit tricky because, you know, he's obviously a little smaller than Tingana in terms of his footprint, but still can be sometimes a bit tough, especially when the roads are as hard as they are at the moment. Christina, everywhere. No, I'm checking. I haven't seen any lion tracks this morning at all. It'd be nice if we had seen some lion tracks. From what I can hear, though, there are lion tracks just on arrow. Sorry, Seb, but you're right there, buddy. This place is... Yeah, Seb is having a tough morning this morning. This is an area that is filled with big kind of aardvark diggings and holes, and Seb just walked into a stump this morning, fell down an aardvark hole, so he's really struggling a little bit with this morning. He's kind of avoiding the hazardous objects. Sorry, Seb, I've taken you through some horrible stuff today. I do apologize. But anyway, like I was saying, there were tracks for lions on Arethusa kind of heading towards Djuma, but no sign as yet. Good, we're going to carry on. We're going to go see what else is around. While we do that, Brent Leo Smith is once again telling stories and quizzes, and let's go find out the answers to all the things that he's been talking about.
Welcome back. Yes, we're still searching for Hasana, but while we're doing that, we're sharing stories of James Henry. And I was saying that the trainees, when they arrive, always come with new things like new binoculars and new knives and new hats and the like. One of the biggest mistakes they make is they arrive with new boots. Oh my goodness. That's not something you find out in the bush every day. I don't wonder how that got you. I wonder if it's the same hyena who stole Dave's shoe brought it to that. I think this has fallen out of someone's car. But it shouldn't be here. It is a spark plug, which means it's from a petrol car. Actually, it looks like... No, it's not so great. No, it looks like it's in pretty good nick, the spark plug. Spare spark plug. You never know when you're going to need one. Pop it in my pocket. No, I'm joking. we can give it to James for his birthday, Kirsten says, to ignite... Well, I suppose it could ignite his personality, spark him off on a tangent. So that one particular group of trainee rangers that James had, one guy actually became a very good ranger in the end, but he walked... I don't know how far James walked them. James can probably tell you in more detail what distance he actually made them walk. But... Oh, there's a white-bellied sunbird calling. Where's he gone? There he is. Or is it a white-bellied? I think it's a white-bellied. It sounded like a white-bellied. You see him up there, Darby? James can probably tell you how far. Here we go, white-bellied sunbird. But hey, that poor child. Well, he's not a child. I think he's my age. But I'd been guiding for a long time. He'd come in later. His feet were completely raw. I mean, his feet, both feet were blisters. There was no feet left. It was just blister. Isn't that pretty? So, of course, the sunbirds. We'll talk about James again shortly. The sunbirds are obviously well known for feeding off nectar of flowers, but white-bellied sunbirds in particular are great hunters of little spiders as well, and they'll go hunt spiders and other little insects. Tip, 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 tip. Here's a second one somewhere as well. A pair of little white-bellied sunbirds. So the last tracks of Hasana were in this area, or Tingana, I'm not sure. I haven't seen the tracks myself yet. So we've arrived here to come have a quick look. Oh, there's a squirrel alarming up ahead. So we'll head towards those alarm calls while we continue to think and talk about James Henry on the day of his birth. I'm trying to think. Well done, Acht Cat. You have got James Henry's favourite tree correct. It is the low-felt milkberry. Well done. Well done indeed. I did not know that. Now, let's think. I'm going to think of another James Henry story. In the meantime, let's go see what the great man himself thinks about what he did to those poor trainee rangers.
Well, I didn't do anything to the poor trainee rangers. We all had to do it, so, you know, nothing I didn't have to do myself. We're sitting here at Biffles Hook Waterhole with two very nice saddly billed storks. Now, the last time we came here, one of the saddly billed storks was on its own. I believe Tristan was here with both of them yesterday, so that's very nice to see. Oh, was that a fish it caught? It must be frogs, yes, because there are no fish in here as far as I'm aware. It really is a bit dire that this waterhole has dried out completely. Dire just from the point of view that although we had a decent rainy season last year, it certainly wasn't enough to fill up these waterholes. The poor froggies are now taking a fearful pasting from the storks. There's quite a lot of alarming around because there are a few raptors. I saw one flying off into the woodland, a raptor being a bird of prey, and there's another one at the end of the dam. That is our old friend the juvenile batelier, which we'll show you shortly. Yes, it is dry, everybody, but remember, we are at the most difficult time of the year to look at, if you know what I mean. The bush never looks drier than it does now, despite the fact that the water table is now starting to rise. And so, although we have a situation where everything looks very dry, there is starting to be a sort of small green flush, and we're looking forward to a good rainy season. If it doesn't rain now, however, then the animals would be in trouble. The raptors that they were being shouted at are over there in that dead tree. Two African hawk eagles that obviously failed to kill. And I saw one of them flying in here because they'd be eating if they had killed. And so if you can hear that grey go-away bird going, "Whee!" that's what it's shouting at. And if they took off, you would hear squirrels and mongoose. Oh, here comes another one. Another one coming out of the top. That's the juvenile, I think. I think that's also a hawk eagle. Possibly the youngster belonging to these two, to that couple. It's flown off now. Maybe they're instructing it in how to catch things. Then let's just have a look at the batelier, which is on the dead tree at the end of the waterhole, and that won't cause nearly the same consternation amongst the birds and squirrels as the African hawk eagle will, because of course it's not so much an aerial hunter as a scavenger. Very nice. I'm most impressed that Leo Smith knew what my favourite tree out here is. Maybe he didn't, maybe you just told him. No, he didn't. But you did. Thank you, everybody, for taking note of my favourite tree. Very kind. The radio is very quiet today, so it's not like we're skipping very high-profile sightings to show you birds and things. Not that we'd mind showing you birds, but there isn't anything out here right now. I think that blacksmith lapwing is on a nest. Can you see that? Senzo? Just down there to the left-hand side. Like there, yeah. Keep going. There. You got him. I wonder if that lapwing isn't on a nest. Michael, I can't remember a particularly memorable sighting on my birthday. I can't remember much about my birthdays other than the fairly major ones and ones when I was a kid. You know, and you'd have a party, and then I remember some of those. But as Kirsten has so very kindly pointed out to me in my ear, there have been so many birthdays, it's difficult to remember them all. I can't remember a particularly Amazing sighting on my birthday. No idea what I saw last year. I don't think I was here last year. I was here the year before when I turned the big 4-0. I remember that. What are you laughing at, Senzo? Thank you, Mac. You're absolutely correct. Too much apple juice on your birthday can do that to you. Here comes the hawk eagle. You hear everything shouting now? Yeah, that's definitely a juvenile African hawk eagle. And all the birds and squirrels know that he's a very good hunter. And that's why they're shouting at him. There's thinner eagles than, for example, the batelier, which is quite bulky. Not being particularly stealthy about his approach to supplying dinner for the family. We're going to go back to Brent now, and Kirsten says for more story time.
So apparently you've requested an embarrassing story about James Hendry. I have a few. Philip would like to know an embarrassing story about James Hendry. Well, Philip, I'm going to go with one that wasn't too long ago. It was during the great gremlin plague of 2015. And I think we had 2 or 3 broken cars, bushwalk wasn't working, and it was a morning safari. So I set myself up at the old fireside chat. And what are you looking at, Impala? The one Impala is staring up the road into the distance. And see her there, she's looking very intently. Nah, I think she's just chewing the cud, and that happens to be the direction she is looking. So I was sitting holding the fort all on my own while James, they thought they'd got bushwalk operational. James was trying to get bushwalk working. He was scurrying about on quarantine, but then eventually we figured that no, nothing was working. The only thing that was working was the feed from the fireside chat. And we collected all sorts of skulls and bones and anything we could find, and put it all around the fire, having a cup of coffee and discussing all the different things. And James came to join me, and we were discussing, I can't remember what we were discussing, but James picked up a skull and he looked at it and he went into this long story about how hippos had evolved with their long noses and their with their eyes on top, so they're from the water, and he's carrying on and on and on. And I was just looking at him being very, very confused. And I was like, is James being funny? I don't think he's being funny. I think he's being dead serious about this baby hippo skull. And I was like, and eventually he finished his whatever he was saying. I was like, anyway guys, I'm pretty sure James is joking, because that is a warthog skull. And he looked at it, and the horror on his face, he just threw it over his shoulder. I went, okay, moving on. And then we carried on talking about something else. That was very, very funny, because in the beginning I thought, oh, James, such a clown, you know. What a laugh a minute this chap is. And carrying on about a warthog skull being a baby hippopotamus. That was very funny though. That was very, very funny. Yeah, that was a fun morning. Let's try to think. See, the thing is, the embarrassing stories about James. James is not easily embarrassed. Well, not many of us are. So it's quite difficult to actually find embarrassing stories about James, because most of us in an embarrassing situation, it's the best way to deal with an embarrassing situation, in my opinion, is to just take ownership of it. Then it's no longer embarrassing, it's funny. But that one was very much so. Let me try to think now. Now, as we know, James has a great affinity for climbing trees. And the great affinity for climbing trees. And actually, one of my favorite memories from Londolozi when James and I were there, for some reason, we were all off that afternoon, quite a few of us. And we couldn't get a cooler box for our apple juice and grape juice and such things. So we managed to take an old big paint tin, put our juices inside, fill it with ice, jumped in a vehicle, and we went off to the northern sections of Londolozi, to my favorite place on Londolozi, called Makamsava Road, which basically make them scared road. Obviously someone got charged by something there in the past. And it is absolutely stunning. It's one of the few spots in the whole Sabi Sands. It's a floodplain on the Manyeleti River with the most spectacular leadwood forest, and also these massive albizias, false thorns. And I remember James scurrying up a very big false thorn, a big albizia tree, and hanging. And the thing was on the bank of the river, so the tree was here. And so, it being a very tall tree, it's probably 3 or 4 meters up, but then there was another extra 2 meters or 2.5 meter drop down into the riverbed. And I remember I was sitting on the bonnet of the vehicle, chatting away. Suddenly I just looked up, and there was James Henry doing his best baboon impression. He's about 5 or 6 meters up, and he's decided this is a good place to sort of just hang off the tree on a branch that was not alive. But it was quite fun. I don't know, that was a very fun afternoon. We had absolutely splendid time. Also, we had quite a lot of fun in the Sand River. I've remembered some stories. Now, our dear Jamesy it can be quite competitive. And we will discuss it a little bit later, because Tristan has found a hole in the ground.
We have indeed. So while we were kind of heading towards where the last tracks of these leopards were, we decided we'd just kind of come past the old hyena den that is off from Vubu Road. It is still probably one of my favorite sort of mounds that we have on Djuma, just from a kind of, I don't know, epic point of view. It almost looks like a castle, and so I'm hoping that Corky and Pretty at some point decide maybe to kind of head into this direction, because this hyena den has got multiple different entrances and kind of layers to it, and it really is very, very big, and it's kind of I'd say probably one of the larger termite mounds that we have on the entire part of Djuma. But essentially these are the kind of holes that they would use. At the moment these are inactive completely. You can see there's very little tracks that are going inside here, so things like warthogs are not even using it at the moment. It seems as though it's just kind of being used predominantly, every now and then maybe, by smaller little things that are going in and out. Now there's actually an ant that's running around here that I was trying to show you guys, but it's now run down the hole, and I don't really want to stick my hand down there. As much as there might not be things like warthogs living in here, there could also still be snakes that are inside here. You can find black mambas living in termite mounds like this, particularly old hyena dens that are no longer being used. You can find things like I said, black mamba, snouted cobra, Mozambique spitting cobra. They love these kind of places to sit in, and so putting your hands down termite mound holes is generally not a very good idea. Now, can you see the ant now? So there, it's crawling around inside there. Very interesting looking one. It's massive. It's probably about the size of, I don't know, the top section of my thumb, and it's got these bright yellow legs. It's kind of gone down and around the corner. Yeah, sorry, buddy. So it's gone down and around the corner, unfortunately. But I really hope that this does get used at some point. Since I've been here on Djuma, this is probably the one that really hasn't shown any signs of use. This and the one of Zoe's. The ones around, obviously, Philemon's and Aubrey's and Gallagher, they've been used quite a lot. Now, Pretty and Corky, I'm pretty sure know about this den. I'm pretty sure they have been to this as part of the clan. They've been around for a bit. And so I'm hoping that at some point, once the other one starts to get a little bit dirty, that they decide to start coming this way. And like I say, the reason why is because it's like an apartment block. This is just little kind of holes and sections everywhere. You can see you've got the hole that goes in there, and then another one that kind of goes into this area. And so it's a nice little place for hyenas to live in. They can go all over the place. There are lots of sort of areas that they can run around. And there's the other sort of parts of the mound. Now, this side looks as though it's got one or two little tracks at it that maybe could be for a warthog at some point. Definitely not very fresh though, that's for sure, which is good news for us, because you don't really want to be in front of a warthog burrow if they're inside there, because when they come barreling out, well, your legs are going to be the first targets. Now, Kirsty, you say you like this den. What is it about it that you like, Kirsty? Is it a nice den? It's just pretty. I'm pretty sure it was nice when the hyenas were here. It is pretty. It's got a nice, beautiful kind of tambuti grove. And like Seven I was saying, it looks like a castle. Oh, are you house hunting, Kirsty? Where are you looking for a house? Kirsty's house hunting, apparently. In Vubu Road. So this is your house. No, I don't think that's going to go down very well. Amber, probably not, and I'll tell you why. The area that we're in is quite open, and so this particular den is very visible throughout this area, and so it would be easily seen if a leopard was sitting here. The other problem with this is there are a lot of game paths that go past this, which means that things like hyenas, lions are moving around here regularly, and because it's so open, they're going to see this. And if there's a lot of leopard activity, her scent is going to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Obviously, the little ones urinate and defecate, and that also causes a smell, and that will attract all kinds of things. And because hyenas have used this in the past, the little holes and sort of caverns that have been made are probably big enough that they can actually get in there, and they'll probably be able to get to those leopard cubs. So lions and leopards typically wouldn't use this. It's too open, too exposed, too out there for them. They would like to use something maybe like this that's hidden in a deep drainage line, and then the holes and the rooting system around the holes is a lot more intricate and a lot more kind of complicated and difficult to get into. But while we were kind of walking down, we managed to find a skull that has been completely destroyed. So this is probably remnants of this being a hyena den. Obviously bits and pieces of animals will get brought back and forth into this area. You can see how they've damaged this orbital section of the skull. If I turn it on the other side, you can see that whole orbital section's been completely broken apart. The brain casing at the back here also broken apart. Now, this skull probably in all likelihood belongs to maybe an impala. It could be something a little bit more substantial than that. I'm just trying to see if I can get any indication. The sort of front end, yes, a hippo. There we go. This is James's missing hippo skull. I'm going to bring it back for him as a birthday present to remind him of good times where he forgot what a hippo skull looks like in comparison to a warthog skull. But what I want to try and do is just lift that part there and just break it open. You can see that this is actually quite old and has been used by something else. You can see all this mud that is being packed inside here. So that's either from being kind of buried and sand washing in there, or maybe potentially a certain insect might have used this as a place to build a bit of a nest. It's a bit loosely packed though for that. I don't think it would be an insect. I think this has more been kind of in a rainstorm and a whole bunch of mud has washed in and filled all those cavities with mud. But pretty interesting to see these kind of things. Often when you come to hyena dens, these are the kind of things you'll find. Lots of bone shards, a few little skulls from when bits have been carried back. It's much like this morning. We saw a bit of that buffalo, which I think has come from Torchwood, where the Nkumas had their buffalo kill. Yesterday, when Seb and I went there, we actually were talking about the fact that there are no legs, and that I wouldn't be surprised that the hyena den there would be a leg or something like that. But it's amazing to think that that hyena has carried that carcass pretty much from sort of the Muluwanini on Chitwa all the way to the Aubrey's hyena den, has carried that leg. And I mean, that leg doesn't weigh a little bit, so pretty mean feat that hyenas have that kind of strength. Anyway, we'll drop that skull back there to break down in the bush. And while we do that, we will, I suppose I said I'd take it back for James as his birthday present. Maybe I'll pick it up again and take it for him. In the meantime, though, talking about him, let's go across to him with an animal.
I'm so very pleased that Tristan managed to find the hippo skull that I thought I had discovered at the fireside chat that one time. We are looking at some impala, which is of course not what Tristan has. He has a hippo skull with him. Now, I said yesterday during the sighting of Tingana that I was so impressed that he'd caught that big male impala and hoovered it down. That was last week that he did that. And I was saying it was impressive because, of course, these impala are not in the rut, which means that they are concentrating on eating. They're not thinking about sex all the time. But what I didn't say, of course, is that they are weakened, and you can see that in this impala ram. He is not in great nick. He's looking very skinny and in need of a good green season feed. And so they will be slightly easier to catch, I suppose, than they might be, say, in January or February, when they'd put on their condition from the summer. That's not to cast any aspersions on Tingana's hunting skills, but I didn't mention that yesterday, and I thought that was a bit remiss of me. There are little hints of green coming through the grass, by the way, so that slight bit of rain that we had has had an effect, and these impala will be gobbling up any bits of green that we can get. And if you look, Senzor, I see some here actually. If you look over there, you can just see a few tongues of green coming through in that region there. I shall now remove my hand. Phew. There you are. That's all. That's how it begins. Just little shoots of green. And eventually everything is green. And you can't believe that it ever looked like this dry, barren winterscape that it does look like now. Senzo, I believe that this shot that you are creating here could possibly be up for an award, don't you? Called Green Grass in Amongst the Grey. Yes, thank you. Very nice. Cheeky mongoose, I see that you have a sense of humour born of sarcasm, which of course is fantastic. You say it's so green it looks like Ireland. Yes, yes, it does, doesn't it? Very similar, almost indistinguishable. It's very funny, cheeky mongoose. Best joke I've heard today. Wick, I have seen some summer mushrooms, yes, no late winter mushrooms. I mean, we're in pretty much summer now. It's end of spring, summer. So I have seen some mushrooms. They've popped up after the last little bit of rain. I saw a huge one. I think it was probably a blooming from a termite mound that had broken the surface and come out. No small ones though, nothing in any elephant dung yet. That's where we often see different kinds of mushrooms. I'm not an expert in mushrooms though, I must confess to you. An expert in very much, but mushrooms definitely not. Right, we're going to do a little trip down Central Road now, which is unsurprisingly pretty much in the centre of the reserve. We've found no tracks of any leopard. There is a kudu up ahead, so let's have a look at the kudu. Maybe the kudu will alert us to the presence of a leopard. Switch off and just ease gently down the road here. Hello, kudu. Don't run away. It's my birthday. Thank you so much. Doesn't care that it's my birthday, this kudu. You see it? Ah, there's another one. Look at this. Let's just quickly look at this kudu, if you don't mind, Kirsten. Beautiful. So there are two kudu cows here. In complete silence otherwise. They seem to have weathered the dry season rather better than the impala, which is slightly counterintuitive because impala are supposed to be able to weather just about anything if they've got enough water, because they browse and graze, whereas the kudu must just browse, not graze. And all of them looking a bit fluffed up because of the cold. Some shouting birds. No, they've stopped shouting now. We're also just above, or just beneath, the African hawk eagle's nest, and I'm pretty sure that's where the two that we saw at Piffleshoek Dam come to roost. I think this is their nest. You see, the hips not quite showing like those impala. Snazzy, that's very odd that kudu should make you think of cinnamon rolls hot fresh out the oven. And that's all I can think about now is cinnamon rolls hot fresh out the oven. Certainly I've never thought of a cinnamon roll hot fresh out the oven when I've seen a kudu before, but you'll probably find that henceforth I shall. That's very funny. Alrighty, let's head down this road. Central Road. If we don't find any sort of track around here, I'm going to be at something of a loss. But that's alright. Some days we have action, some days we don't. Let us go back across now to Brent Leo Smith, who I believe is going to give us Story Time Part 3.
Oh yes. So, back in the days, we used to play touch rugby every day at 11 o'clock sharp, whether it was 43 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius, and if it was raining, if the sun was shining. And James used to get a little bit angry on that touch rugby field with certain human beings, and that was quite amusing. And now what I have done, because it is James Henry's birthday, oh dear, I've gone back into the archives of the old days. And we see that there, Darv? Or must I move it? Look at that. James and his guitar, of course, a lot of our fondest memories out in the bush have been James and his guitar. And Kirsten says, "What's on his head?" Yes, it is true. Once upon a time, James Henry had hair. So here we go. Look at that face. Look at that face. Very much into the song. I can't remember which song he was singing. I think we should keep some for later. What do you think? Look at that. Look how little he was. Oh, he's so cute. Look at little Jamesy. I think we'll save the rest for a little bit later, don't you? We've got more, but we can't show them all at once. No, as James and his guitar has been, sure, well, as long as I've known James, he's had a guitar attached to himself. And as I say, some very, very, really wonderful memories of James with his guitar. I think for me, one of the most special ones that of James and his guitar was at my 31st birthday. Now, my 30th birthday I spent on my own in a rainforest in Gabon. So the next year I decided, well, since I'm back in South Africa, I will have a birthday party. And a whole bunch of us went to a little bush camp not far from Hoedspruit. And James played for ages on my at that party. It was really, really wonderful. He is a very talented man. But one of my favorite memories of James from that particular weekend was a mutual friend of ours used to work as a ranger at Londolozi with us as well. She had a new boyfriend who we didn't know that well, and it was a very small tented camp, so the tents were quite close together. And our dear friend Helen had a boyfriend who had a very big problem with snoring. Oh, we're causing traffic jams. Let's let them go past. And James happened to be in the tent next to where they were staying. I won't use the exact wording that James used, but he got up in the morning, went for a cup of coffee, looked like he hadn't slept at all, and turned to Helen, who was having her cup of coffee, while her then boyfriend was still sleeping. He went, "Helen, what is it like living with a Husqvarna?" So, like a chainsaw, that guy kept that whole side of the camp up all night. Yes, he was very, very upset with Luke and his snoring. Very upset. But let's think what else. I've got, there's so many James Henry stories. Yes. Some of the funniest times I've ever spent with James Henry was further north from here. On the project he was working on before he came to join us at SafariLive. So I think I might have already even been at SafariLive, not sure. But on my leave, I think it was maybe just before I went as well, but where James was before he joined SafariLive. He was living in the very small rural village of Mbaula, and he was doing tourism training with the local community, and he had asked me to come film it for him so he could use the filming as a training tool and whatnot. And it was like James was a proper school teacher. He was teaching people how to set tables and serve drinks and, do the hospitality stuff. And I can't remember her name now, but there was one lady who every time they were supposed to be doing stuff and concentrating, she would be doing this. And James spots her. So I've got the camera on. James spots her, and in true Henry fashion, "Give me that phone. If you're a child, you want to behave like a child, I'll treat you like a child." And then storms off back to the other side of the classroom to carry on cheating. I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of James, though. That is not a pleasant place to be. Kirsten just says, "Mayor, no, it's not." Yes, we've all unfortunately fallen on the wrong side of James from time to time. But one of the best things about James is that there is never the holding of a grudge. And that's one of the wonderful things I think about a lot of our crew. We will get frustrated and angry with each other, but it's all over within about 5 minutes. Okay, over to Tristan on Bushwalk.
Indeed, we do all get kind of over it at some point, and yes, being on the wrong side of James can be a nasty, nasty story. You don't want to be on the wrong side of James when he's upset, but for the most part, though, he is not difficult to work with at all. I like the fact that you know where you stand with James. It's always a good thing, because he'll just tell you if he doesn't like what you're doing, or kind of any of those kind of things. So, I always prefer it that way, and Brent and James are the funniest, because the two of them are always having some sort of a go at one another. Now, we are in the area of where they last had male leopard tracks, apparently around Gallagher Pan area, so we're just checking around to see what there is. We can't find anything yet. We've found very old tracks for Tundi, but zero sign of a male leopard moving through here. We wanted to try and see if we can find exactly which leopard it was, whether it was Tingana or Hosana. We know Hosana moved south from the kind of pan, but he could have easily come around into quarantine and back up this way. The tracks sort of cut along the edge, past the sort of tent area, and then turn towards Gallagher Pan, which could be one of these two. You know, Tingana and Hosanna both walk that route, so to say who it is at this, but we're going to try and go back towards the pan itself, pick up the track, and then see where it goes. If they go, there we go, so Herbie's already found the track up ahead here, which is good news. Now, this track, I'm pretty sure if it's gone here, shoot for Tingana. It's the right kind of path that he walks. Hosanna very seldom takes this path, so here you'll see them nice and clear and beautiful in the sand. So there we go. This is always what you want to see when you're looking for tracks, is a nice deep sort of track like that. So this is where he's walked along. You can obviously see typical sort of leopard track in that it's very round, so that rounded appearance immediately from far away will help you kind of think about that it should be leopard. And then just the sort of way that it's walking, very dead straight kind of feet, rounded toes. There's a gap between each of the toes here, and then you've got these sort of 3 lobes at the back. So it's a very typical kind of leopard footprint that you would see, and he's kind of walked straight on this path, which is, like I say, a very typical Tingana path to walk on. When he normally comes from the pan, this is the path that he takes. Hosanna, funny enough, doesn't walk this path very often at all. Normally when Hosanna's around, he takes a path a little bit further to our east. So he goes past a big termite mound, and then he kind of hits a road and then goes northwards up the road, and then into a drainage line that's a little further east of us, whereas Tingana hits this kind of pathway and walks through, and then he gets up onto sort of Gallagher shortcut area and then out onto Biffle's Hook. So I'm pretty sure that he's not going to be around here, even though he was so full-bellied. Remember, he spent 2 days just sitting in one spot and hasn't marked or vocalized or kind of walked around much, and so I'm pretty sure he's quite keen to sort of go now and check what's going on. So we can kind of have a little look and see where these roughly go, but I'm almost 99% sure that these tracks are going to head and take us all the way up to the Buffelshoek boundary and out of our area. So ages, it's difficult for me to show you this because I don't have my tracking book with me, and it's much easier when I can show you both tracks as to be able to do differences. So I'm going to ask you to remind me, I'm on this afternoon, so I'll have my book with me on a vehicle. If you're going to watch this afternoon or tomorrow morning, just let me know which one you're going to be on, and then just remind me, and I'll do the 2 tracks for you between the sort of Wildcat and the Civet and why they are different, and it's much easier if I can show you. It's very tricky just to kind of talk about it without any reference points to be able to show you as we go. Now, what's amazing about tracking animals and kind of following tracks is that those tracks are bright, clear, and very obvious on that pathway. We've walked, so the last track we had is where those 2 trees are. We've walked 10 meters from there, and it becomes almost impossible to see the tracks now. The ground has become very hard. It hasn't been disturbed. That path is easy because it's been disturbed by elephants and buffalo and all these things that walk around here, whereas this area, not so much. There's a few little buffalo tracks inside, but otherwise the ground itself, you can see, it's still got pitting of rain, and so it's quite hard. You can even hear it hasn't been broken up yet, and so what we need is a whole bunch of animals to walk. And so what happens when animals walk is basically that. And then if I stand, there you can see my track very, very clearly. If I stand next to it, though, over here, now you can see the difference between that track and that track. And so this is basically a summer kind of track that you're going to get, whereas this would be a winter version. This is because lots of animals would have walked and there's been no rain, and eventually it all scuffs up and dries out and becomes very dusty, and wind kind of disturbs the surface. Whereas in summer, I mean, here is my track right here. It's in that circle. You can hardly see it, whereas that is very, very clear. So that's what kind of winter and summer looks like in terms of the tracking world. It becomes a lot harder in the summer months to find things. And it just goes to show you how tricky it can be. I'm also a lot kind of, well, the pressure on my feet is a lot more than what you're going to see on something like a leopard. A leopard also has got soft pads, so it's absorbing some of that pressure, whereas, you know, we've got hard-edged shoes that give us a lot more defined lines. So it can give you a kind of little glimpse as to why tracking cats can be so hard in the winter months. Connie, can we see the injury on Tingana's track? I actually didn't look, but let's go back quickly and let's go and have a little look. Sorry, Seb. We're going to head back there and just have a little quick scratch. I mean, I walked on some of the tracks, so I'm not 100% sure we're going to see all of them, but let's just go and have a quick kind of check. I would imagine with that injury that you know, obviously he would have been a little hurt and it would be sore, but as he starts to walk and he goes for quite some time, so the track itself, he should be okay. So if we have a look here, here is 2 of his tracks, so that's a front and back foot there. Here is another one over there, and then one over there, and none of these are showing any indication of a drag going forward. So when we saw the Avoca male line track, he basically had his kind of 4 toes, let's call it. So I mean, this is a very, very poor track, and one of the toes, or on the front of it, you had that kind of marking going forward. So this, if this was his kind of paw print here, it would step and drag forward, and you'd get that kind of mark going along the track as he pulled his leg forward. Whereas if you look on Tingana's foot, so it's got to be one of the front pads. We know that it wasn't a back foot. So on the front pads, this one is absolutely fine. This is the next front foot back. So if I go backwards in his track, this one, I mean, there's a slight little kind of movement there, but it's probably, it looks more like an old track of another animal than anything else. I don't see too much disturbance at the front of the toes, so it doesn't look like he was limping by now, and that's probably because he's walked quite far already. You must remember that this is a long, long way from where that carcass was, and so by now, you know, his body would have warmed up a little bit, and he should theoretically be walking with a lot more comfort at this point. As the blood gets through there and the stiffness and the soreness kind of works out, he starts to walk a little bit better. But there's no definitive sign of any real bad limp within the track that I can see. He might have a small limp, but he's definitely not dragging a paw like the Avoca male line in any way whatsoever. Right, let's carry on. Let's see if we can track down where he's gone. Right, now, it's going to snow. Brent Leo Smith apparently has found himself an animal for this morning. So let's go across there so he can talk about animals rather than James.
Well, exciting, exciting. I got a report from my brother about tracks of the Nkuhumas possibly crossing into Djuma, and it is the full Nkuhuma Pride. 3, including their add-ons, the 3 mangy Mangens, 1 Talamati male, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there could be a few more. There's some more lying at the back there that I can't really see. So it looks to be that they've joined again. Oh, shame. Shame, look at this guy. Shame, I feel so bad for these guys. Now you see how he's scratching like that? Now that is an involuntary response to the mites, normally in and around the ears and the head. So when you see him doing that, he's not really scratching. That means he can feel the mites in his ears and stuff like that, like you do if you tickle the back of a dog, and its leg starts going. So that is an involuntary response to the amount of the mites that are on that poor lion. Well, it is nice to have them all back. Ruben is wondering, why did the Avoca male only let the Mangen male eat and not the Nkuhumas? He did let the Nkuhumas eat. So Ruben, we found them when we were out on tracking team, and he did let them eat. But I think the Nkuhumas had moved off. They were fat enough. They didn't want any more of that buffalo. So they had moved off and weren't that interested in feeding. But he did actually, when we found them, all the Nkuhuma females that were there were eating, as well as the Avoca and the little Mangen male. Sorry guys, yeah, if you come on Zoe's Road, if you're coming from the south, we're probably about 800 meters from Junctions Philemon's. On the western side of the road. You can't miss us, right next to the road. Okay, sorry about that. He'd called about 12 times. I thought might have to answer. Isn't that wonderful? So as I said, let's try to do a proper count here, Darby. So I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 no, that's a Talamati. So we've got 7 Nkuhumas here, but there's another group of them. So if you see just to the right of that termite mound, under that little scraggly bush willow, so there's another group lying over there. And so it looks like there are more lions lying about here as well. Looking all reasonably well fed. So both sets of Nkuhumas, even once they were split, were actually feeding on buffalo in different places. Ildi says, "Where's the Talamati?" That's the bigger male lying to the, there we go, that one there, Dave, at the back. That looked like the Talamati boy. Now, you must remember, I haven't been with these lions for a long time, so yeah, because I don't think the little Nkuhuma male doesn't have that much of a mane yet, eh? No, yeah, so that's the Talamati. So they've actually moved quite far from where, or both sets have moved quite far from where they were yesterday. Romit, oh, we can hear elephants feeding behind us as well. Oh, it's all happening here on Zoe's Road. Romit says, any news on the Evoca boys? They were in Buffels Hook last night, quite far to the north, near the Kruger boundary. As the last update I had on them. This is very good prospects for this evening. Although they are looking quite fat, there have been some buffalo herds around, and we all know how the Nkuhumas are partial to buffalo. I must say, it is always awesome to have them back on Djuma. Oh, Davy, let me just go forward a little bit. I've spotted something. Oh, of course. I think you still need to go forward. Is that David? Did you see what I was looking at? There, oh, where'd it go? There it is. A little bee eater as well. Chip. Off it went. Them very lazy looking lions. Oh, shame, boys. Shame. You can see how they're constantly trying to scratch. I think there actually might be another lion that I miscounted there. No, 7 here. And at least 8, 9 Nkuhumas. Total 11, aren't there? Or 12? Can you remember, Dov? It's been so long since I've spent a lot of time with these lions. 11. So, in theory, we've got 7 here. There should be 4 over there. Should we go have a look if there are 4 over there? Just do a proper head count. On the other side of the termite area. The line dynamics here at the moment are absolutely fascinating. Lauren is asking, will all these males form a coalition? I don't know, Lauren. That's the amazing thing. No, we've only got 2 here. So, oh, Darby. Sometimes the girls don't like these young boys, the mangy ones. They often growl, maybe give them a smack. They seem to be tolerating them a little bit more now. You can see they're big-bodied boys. Well, he is in particular, but it just looks like a female because of that mange eating away. There we go. Not completely accepted into the pride yet. And so I say the dynamics at the moment are fascinating. And to be honest, we just don't know what's going to happen with these males. Ooh, she's very upset. Ah, there we go. You see, I noticed this when I only had half of the pride. Every time these Mungen boys got too close, the females would often move. I'll see some of them are quite hungry. That female at the back is just stood up. She's looking quite hungry. So as I say, we don't know what's going on with these dynamics at the moment, which makes it even more interesting. Will they form a coalition? Won't they? The fact that Avoca tolerated them was unbelievable. Interesting times with the lions of the Sabi Sands. Well, I'm definitely going to sit here for a bit longer, see how it plays out between these lions. At the moment, Tristan is yet again staring at the soil.
I am staring at the soil. I'm looking at a very cool sort of sign that we sometimes get to see out here, particularly in the dry periods. You see it a lot more. But basically what you can see is that there was an excavation that took place here. So besides the ants that are going all over the place, you can see where some animal dug in like this and was pulling sand up and away and exposing inside here a little root. So there's the root there. Now this root you can see has also been gnawed on a little bit and exposed, and there's that orangish kind of layer that's inside there, and that's the cambium layer inside that root, which is very, very full of nutrients, and it's why this particular animal has gone after it. The ants are here because that's probably exposed a bit of moisture, and there's sugars that are within, or nutrients that are within that area that they normally can't get to, particularly now that it's dry, and so they've probably swarmed around this area just to come and feed off what's been exposed. But this has been made by a porcupine. So porcupines are quite common out here, a lot more common than you think. We very seldom see them, which is quite weird. You know, I thought we would see a lot more of them, particularly since we've been doing a lot of nighttime stuff. You know, we've been flying the drone quite a bit at night, and we've been out with the thermal cameras in early hours in the morning, and I thought we would have seen more of them. You find their tracks and their signs of them everywhere. And this is a very common kind of trait for a porcupine, is for them to dig up a root like this, gnaw on the root, and then off they go onto the next one. They are incredibly difficult animals to have around where people have settlements, because they are notoriously good at getting into any sort of garden area. So if you've got a subsistence farmer that's trying to grow things like potatoes and onions or anything that's in the ground, these guys come and just absolutely destroy them, and they can go through an entire kind of little vegetable patch in the space of a night. So they often are considered to be a little bit kind of like vermin. But it's very cool to see it anyway. It's always nice when we get to see kind of signs of these guys. Now, we were walking along because we were looking for any signs of Tingana and kind of tracking him. And we eventually found where he had scent marked. So you can see a nice, quite clear sort of track here. If you have a look, there's soil that's kind of been scraped, and that's his back leg scraping. And then he's spraying his urine right here. This is a perfect kind of example of a scent mark. And then if you have a look here, there is his track within that scent mark itself. So there's the toes and then the back of the pad, and this kind of, like I say, was where he had scraped his back legs. Then he would have squatted, urinated in this area, and then he would have carried on up this path. Now this is a path that we've seen him walk quite often. I actually watched him scent mark in this exact same spot probably about a week ago, I think now, is when I last saw him scent mark here. And so this is not surprising that he headed in this direction. We were pretty sure that he will head here, and from this particular spot, it's going to be that he's going to go north up towards Buffelshoek. I'm almost 99% sure that he's already crossed into Buffelshoek. He looks like he's been moving quite quickly. Herbie reckons the way that that track is moving is showing a pretty quick gait, so it looks as though he's walking quite fast as he's going along, and it's probably because after a bit of rain that we've had, as well as him being on the carcass, he's very keen to go and mark his territory and just stamp everything out again. Remember, he's also interacted with 2 other leopards on these carcasses, and so it'll just be kind of him sending a message to everybody that I'm the big, strong, dominant male. Kendall, there's 2 reasons for it. One is when they scrape, they're opening up that soil to allow the urine to basically penetrate in it. So it will dry a lot faster on a piece of grass, and the scent will probably not last as long if it was just in the wind being blown about. Whereas if it soaks into the soil, it tends to last a little bit longer. So that's one reason. The other reason is often when they do it, a little bit of urine will kind of get onto their feet when they're scraping, and that will then be carried with them as they walk along. So as they walk along the path, if another animal intersects that, they often can pick up the scent from that urine just off his feet, basically. They try not to pee on their feet too much. They're not as kind of bad as something like a rhino, but every now and then you'll find that when they're scraping, urine starts to come out and gets onto the sort of back part of the pads and carried forward. But it's more just to open the soil out and to be able to then defecate in the soil, and that makes that whole scent there for a much longer time. And also, like I say, it doesn't get as sort of sprayed out. It becomes a lot more sort of concentrated within one sort of section. And you'll find that it's only in adult leopards that do it. Obviously, if you watch Tlalamba do it, she doesn't do that. She won't scrape before she pees. She'll just kind of go to the toilet right there and then. And Hosana was like that for a long time, until rather recently, when he started to actually scrape and started to expose the soil and actually do proper scent marking for a time. Now, Tandi, we know, does it, and obviously Tingana is very, very good evidence there that he does it all the time. But like I say, we're not far from the northern boundary, so I'm pretty sure, like I say, that he's crossed. We'll kind of follow a little bit longer, just see in case he maybe lay up with a full belly. But while we look around, let's send you back across to Brent and the Nkuhuma Pride.
Well, there we go. There's that little Talamati male having a little yawn. Looking quite relaxed. So the little Nkuhuma male is over here. That one there. That's the little Nkuhuma boy. And Karen is wondering, do I think the Nkuhuma Pride are chasing the Mangen boys away because of the mange? Probably not, Karen. I think they're chasing away because they're young males that aren't part of their pride, but they're not really posing a threat at the moment in terms of killing members of the pride, because I think the females are quite confident they can deal with them. I don't know. I don't know. It's really interesting. It's very strange, to be honest. What is happening at the moment? And there we go, a lovely lazing Nkuhuma scene. Oh, David, up there, there. And, oh, is it behind the tree? We'll come a little bit to the left. Let me just move forward. I can't move forward from here. There's a white crown shrike as well. Or maybe he'll move out into the open just now. Okay, so Lynn's wondering... Oh, there he is. He's moved further to the back. Oh, don't worry, David. You got him? Yeah. Oh, well done, David. Well done. Oh, there's another one. How would the lions get rid of mange, is what Lynn is wondering. Lynn, they don't ever really. They will build immunity to it, to a degree, but generally once the rainy season comes, it seems to improve a lot. And a lot of people were wondering about the wounded in Kauma and how her wound's doing. It looks fine. It's healed quite well. And also nice and clean, no maggots in it, no sign of infection. Now, was it closed the last time you saw it, Dave? Or was it open?
It was closed when I saw it.
It was closed, so it looks like it has been opened again. Oh, okay, I've got... Kirsten says it thinks it's always been open. Dave thinks it's been closed. Why didn't you guys let us know? Hashtag SafariLive. It is really, really lovely to find these lions. But while they're snoozing, Anisha says that wound still looks like it hurts. It probably does a little bit, probably more stiff than anything else. But while the lions are snoozing, and because it's James Henry's birthday, we've got a few more pictures. Do I need to move or we're good?
Just maybe the glare, just change it over or down maybe. It's a bit better, yeah.
Here's a bit better. James looking to the sky while he plays his guitar. Oh, my shuka is reflecting in it. Let me move my shuka. That better? Okay, there we go. James Henry looking to the side. Looks like he forgot the words of the song there. And there, a little young James. Isn't he sweet? Not like the man we all know now. He was so innocent back then. And James also, after he left the bush for a while, did a few concerts in and around Johannesburg. And I was his unofficial official photographer. So here's James playing at the Radium Beer Hall, one of the oldest bars in Johannesburg. Kirsten says that's a proper duck lip. He looks like he was having a great time. Okay, we'll save a few more for a little later. But the lines at the moment are very, very flat. David was wrong. Everyone has said the lion's wound has always been open. David, you were wrong. Apologise.
So sorry.
He's sorry. Good. Okay, well, the lion snooze. Let's go see what Tristy's found on Bushwalk.
Well, yes, Brenty, the lions are snoozing at the moment. I'm pretty sure it kind of feels like a good day to be a cat, to be sleeping. The wind is not blowing today, and so I'm sure they're quite happy about that. And also, there's not too much sun, so it seems like a perfect time. Now, what we've got is a pretty cool little ball of web and silk and leaves and... well, lots and lots of corpses, really, of all kinds of insects. And so this is a little community spider nest that we've got here. We've got kind of a ball of web that's everywhere. And these guys will be basically building this as a big grouping. You'll find lots and lots and lots of them will come together to be able to build this whole thing, and they'll basically use each other as a way of being able to capture insects. Singularly, they do not have enough venom or be able to inject enough venom to keep prey subdued and to kill them and to feed off them, but as a collective they can all do it together and they then all benefit from it. Now what they normally do is they'll normally build quite a big web towards the fringes. So you see on this sort of right side here, there's actually quite a lot of web that's been built just on this side that attaches to this piece of grass over here. And so these are all the kind of stay lines that come down. It comes down to a big piece of grass over there, and then obviously around it. Then in the middle is where they basically will drag in this case, they've used a branch as a basis, and then they've dragged bits of grass and all kinds of other little things to form this big ball. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to make a protective kind of area for themselves. They can go inside there, hide out during the course of the day where they don't get hunted and taken by other things, and then if anything lands on the web itself, they then can come out, grab it, and go back in. And normally when you look at these, they're quite far away and you don't get that close to them, but because we're sitting right here, when we kind of look very close inside here, you think that it's all just grass and web, but actually there are so many different insects that have been caught, and their carapaces and all their little bits and kind of exoskeletons are actually left over all the way throughout. And so this entire web is absolutely covered with insect carcasses, which is quite macabre when you think about it. It's almost like a little kind of death ball at this stage, which I know sounds quite odd, but absolutely fascinating to see how well constructed it is. This is probably one of the most circular ones that I've seen. It's almost a perfect ball that these guys have made, and it's probably, I would say, it's larger than a tennis ball that they've built, and they do get much bigger than this. You can get ones that are really, really large, but this is just such a nice, neat one compared to some of the others that you see. They often look a little bit scraggly and a little bit kind of broken up and not really put together very well, but this one looks almost perfectly formed, and it has been built in a very, very good way with branches and grasses and leaves and everything. It must be a kind of mansion inside there for these tiny, tiny spiders. Liz, you say you're shivering right now. Liz, you would be shivering even more if I had to take that ball of web and open it up and show you how many spiders live inside this thing. There's thousands of them in there, but they are not in any way dangerous to us, so we don't need to worry about it too much. And I find them fascinating, to be honest. The fact that there's this kind of communal spider that we get in this area is absolutely amazing. Now, I was saying just now about the carapaces that you kind of see that are below or in the actual web itself. Now, I've just found one or two actually that I'm going to grab and come and show you guys. I've just got to get myself off of the ground without breaking this web and allow Seb to also kind of move should he want to. Yes, exactly, Joe. You say spider death ball. No, now I've dropped this carapace. Okay, well, I've got a little piece of it, but basically underneath there's lots of these kind of things that are all over the place, and you'll find that this is obviously an exoskeleton for a little beetle, and this would have probably been eaten, and when they were actually forming the web, they would have then kind of pulled pieces like this to part of that sort of ball, and they would have fed off it, and then some will be ejected and fall down, and kind of that's why at the bottom underneath the web there's a whole bunch of exoskeleton like this. But isn't that cool how it's been completely hollowed out? So inside there would have been all the stuff that these little spiders would have drunk from this particular beetle. Absolutely amazing. Very, very cool. Mushcats, you say. I mentioned that there were more insects at night around camp. Which kinds is what you would like to know? Ooh. There are many. So we're seeing a lot of male antlions at the moment. Mosquitoes are starting to come out. The odd rhino beetle, dung beetle, fruit chafers. What else have we been seeing? Anything else, Seb, that's been around? One or two of those ship timber beetles. Solifuges have been out. Centipedes, millipedes. Yeah, so quite a few things. Moths, scorpions, yes. The Christmas beetles is what Seb is saying. So out here we call it a little Christmas beetle. It's part of the chafer family, but we call it a Christmas beetle because they're always out around the summertime, which is which to come out around the Christmas time, and like I say, that's our summer period, and so that is the time when insects come out. Now, Mushcat, you're asking why you want to know is because you want to avoid them when you come out here. Well, I'm afraid, depending on when you get here and depending on when the rains happen, you might find that you're going to be inundated with insects. If we get a really good storm in the next few weeks, then it can be pretty intense out here, and the insects can be quite unbearable at times. I mean, it's not the worst place for insects. I've certainly been to other areas that have got far worse kind of insect populations than what we do, but you definitely do get these outbreaks after rain. You'll start to get things, a lot of flies will come out, you'll start to see a lot of mosquitoes, you'll start to see All kinds of little creepy crawlies all over the place. You get a lot of what we call a little stink bug, which are horrible things. They're these little tiny black beetles, basically, and they will land in your food often at night, generally because you're eating food and there's candles or lits or lights or whatever it may be, and they then come in there, and then you take a spoonful of food and you can't actually see them because they're so small, and you take this bite and all of a sudden you've got this taste in your mouth that is just horrendous, and it is the worst thing. It can ruin your meal every time, and always happens in the summer months. So you've got to look forward to those guys. I'm just trying to think what other pesky insects we get. It's weird, every year we get a outbreak of a certain for certain kind of insects. We've had outbreaks of various different ones over the last few years. There was a ship timber beetle outbreak at one point. We've had, what was last year? I'm trying to think what we had lots of last year. Kirsty, do you remember what we had a lot of? Blister beetles have been, actually they've been quite bad this year already as well. Wishkat, you're saying you're coming out for the wee expedition in January. Ooh. January is one of the worst months for insects, but that's okay, it will be alright. Hopefully, if it stays a bit dry, then you'll be alright. Yeah, prepare for a lot of screaming. Well, okay. As long as it's not blood-curdling scream like you're going to be murdered, then that's okay, because otherwise that's going to attract a lot of attention, and everybody's going to have to come running to see that you're all right. But there will be a few insects at that time of the year. Unfortunately, January is the kind of peak of, well, middle of our summer, and so generally we have had a bit of rain. It's quite green. Insects are around, but you never know. Weather is so upside down at the moment. You know, we might go a few weeks or a few months without proper rains, and then be like last year where it only really properly rained in sort of March, April. So we'll see. But I mean, there are a lot of insects around at that time of the year for sure. They do come out, but it is what it is. They're very, very important animals, and I love insects. You know what insects we do have to look forward to when this all kind of takes place? So, Mushkat, as long as, you know, there's obviously the nasty ones, which is the ones we always talk about, because they kind of impact our lives much more, but there are so many beautiful insects out here. So when you come, you'll be able to see there's incredible butterfly species, incredible moth species. You get the rainbow shield bugs, which are one of my favorite insects that we get out here. We get the jewel beetles. So those are all really beautiful insects that we get to see with amazing coloration. And so hopefully you'll be able to see some of those and slowly ease you in to the little bit kind of, well, the few insects that we do see in the summer months, and hopefully kind of get you over your fear of some of them. Right, now it sounds like birthday boy, who's just done whatever he wants this morning, decided to leave us for a while and just do his own thing, and finally his conscience has caught up with him. He's decided to rejoin our drive.
That is so deeply unfair. I did not choose to leave you. I had to leave you to go and record a few things that were for what we call non-live pieces, if you like. I didn't do it by choice. Tristan knows that, of course. It's just being unfair to me. It's very nasty on my birthday. Now, I'm really a bit jealous that Brent Leo Smith's managed to find some lions, which I feel would be nice for me to find, because it's my birthday, not his birthday. And there are also leopards on Torchwood, but we don't have any signal in that particular area. They've got Quarantine, the male leopard there. Now, for those of you who haven't met Quarantine, the male leopard, he is, of course, Hosanna's brother, his older brother. And he set himself up far to the east, pretty much on the borders, I suppose, of Tingana's territory. And he is not Tingana's son. He is the son of Mvula, who was another male leopard who lived in this area, and he has since passed on. Apparently we don't want to just drive around with me, we want to rather go and see lions and elephants in one sighting.
Well, some Ellie bulls, some young Ellie bulls have arrived in the area, and it's prompted Think almost to get up and move, even though the elephants haven't chased them. You'll see there's a young Ellie boy there. but it seems like it's time to move now because the elephants are here. Here's the little Niconico boy coming here, Darby. And you can see he's got massive feet. Hey, big guy. And he's smelling where the females urinated. Oh, let's go there quickly. That Niconico is snarling at the Talamati male, and the Talamati male is snarling at the Mangen boys. There's so much happening here at the moment. The dynamics are fascinating. If they haven't moved too far the rest of the pride, they've stopped at a termite mine behind us. We're going to stick with these guys here that are next to us. I think if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen between this lot. And there goes little Niconico. He's going to be a big boy, yes you are, if he makes it to adulthood. Looking a little bit better fed than the females, which is not uncommon for young males of this age. They tend to dominate the carcasses, beat up the girls, and take the lion's share. Here comes one of our not so good looking young Mangen males. You can't help but feel sorry for them. The sarcoptic mange is truly set in. Now they're really going to be hoping that it rains soon, because the rain will help alleviate the mange. If they survive this, they will have some immunities to sarcoptic mange, but they'll probably be infected with the mange for the rest of their lives. So behind us we've still got the Talamati male and one Mangen male and two Niconico females, unless one snuck off behind us. You can only see one of the females now. Let's move to where the rest of the pride are, because those Mangen males are heading towards there, and there's a chance that the girls are going to give them a smack. Now, to find a way to negotiate through this broken country is always a little difficult. And as you can see, the Ellies are slowly moving towards where the lions are. Hello, little boy. Hi, Elvis. Jump. Oh. Morning, guys. So let's go there, because I think those females might give those young males another hiding when they get closer. They haven't quite completely accepted the Talamati or the Mangen males by the looks of things. Hello, cheeky. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'll sort you out if you get cheeky. Pimp Daddy would like to know... Oh, get ready. Ears are flat already. I'm going to answer your question in a second. You can just see by those females' ears going that flat that they're not impressed with the arrival of those Mangen boys. Let's just get behind. Bouncy bounce. So their movement was purely to get away from the Ellies that were slowly feeding in their direction. David, are you happy here? Mangane boys decided discretion better part of valor. Let's keep away from that grumpy female for now. It's starting to warm up quite quickly, and I've still got many layers on, so the zip you're hearing is just me opening up my jacket. And Pimp Daddy was saying, if I turned my back on the lions, would they attack me? No, not while I'm in a car, and almost certainly not while I'm on foot. Lions are the dominant nocturnal predator. We are the dominant diurnal predator. Even on foot, most lions will run away from you during the day. However, at night, it becomes very different, and then you wouldn't even have to turn your back on the lions at night for them to try and hunt you. You see that Eddie's blowing some dust. Now, with young elephant bulls like this, he might just decide to chase the lions because it's fun. I don't think the lions are going to settle for too long in this position. There's not much shade here. And they will look for shade. There's enough shade around, but in their current position, not too much shade at all. But it does definitely feel like someone has suddenly turned on the heater. We're going to stay here for longer. While we do that, let's send you across to the poor James Henry, who has managed to find zilch on his birthday.
Correct. Yes, I managed to find zilch on my... There's some vultures. We can have a look at them. I suspect I might lose signal here, but best not to. Let's have a look at vultures.
Oh dear, it seems like James not only hasn't found any animals, but he can't find any signal either. Apologies, you might hear some ruffling. I'm trying to take my jersey off. It is getting very warm very quickly. What are the lions seeing? Is there a bird flying? All of a sudden, saw something behind us. I can't see anything there. Can you, Dave? No, okay, I'm going to fight with my jacket. No, they've definitely seen something. What have you seen, girls? Something has piqued their attention. There's a beautiful sight there when the lions start focusing in on something. Very interested. Not too interested. I think it's a bit warm for them to actually do anything about it, but hopefully they can prove me wrong. James is asking, we've seen the lionesses growl at the Mangane males, but have I seen the Talamati or Nkahuma male growl at the Manganes? I have, this morning. I haven't spent much time with all of them. So there are still 2 missing. What's she doing behind us there, Dave?
Still walking.
Still walking. Of course, as soon as you want to take your jackets off and stuff, the lions start doing things. I'm trying to turn around so we can see if we can spot what she's after. Oh, there. That wildebeest. There's a herd of wildebeest. Is that wildebeest? Looks like it. That's what they've spotted. And as I said, quite a lot of them are quite hungry. So even though it suddenly got quite warm, it looks like some of them might attempt to hunt. Well, one of them. So we'll stick with her. She might just move to the next termite mound and watch them. Okay, that's exactly what she's done. She has decided to just keep an eye on the wildly beasts from a nice high vantage point. So they're still quite far away and it is quite warm. They might definitely try to hunt them this evening. You could not get much more classic lion pose than we're about to show you. Okay, now let me try to take my jacket off because I'm starting to get very warm. Okay, while we do that, while I try to take my jacket off, it seems like the birthday boy has found some signal.
Linking. Hello everybody, sorry about that. We're driving quite fast at the moment up towards Gallagher Shortcut, which is on the northern side of the reserve, because Tristan can see vultures going down there. Tristan and Herbie reckon that perhaps the buffalo from whose leg Corky stole and put in her den may have died over there. So we're going to drive with a great speed up to that area. We're probably, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes away. We have about 20 and a bit minutes left to drive, so we should be able to find something. Okay, my signal apparently is still not good, which is a bit weird. Let's go back to Tristan.
Well, I don't know what's going on with James. Maybe the signal gremlins are in cahoots with James for his birthday and are getting rid of the signal so he can have some time off. Anyway, we're sitting here at the moment, and why James is racing towards Gallagher Shortcuts at the moment is because way off, well, not way off, not too far from us, but far enough that we won't be able to get there on foot in the time that we have, is a whole bunch of vultures that are just piling out from the sky and down onto the ground. And so I think there's something big that's dead there. I wouldn't be surprised that it might even be that buffalo that the leg is at hyena, where the leg is at the hyena den. So there's lots and lots of vultures. They were coming all over the place. I can't see one now. Seb was trying to find them for you, but it's just over the horizon here. There's kind of ones starting to drop down. There's one in the sky that I can see. And it's amazing to kind of watch these guys come in, because they just come in from every direction. And once one or two spot that there's a carcass, it makes it much easier. There's one right above us, actually. You've got one. Excellent. Very good. So far, all white-backed vultures that I've seen, but it's amazing to watch kind of how they've just come in from, like I say, you see them from east, west, north, south, all coming, and they're just bombing down. So whatever's there, they're trying to get down in a hurry, and I don't think then there's a predator on it. Now, we know that there was a buffalo. No, that's not a vulture by the looks of things. I can't see very nicely what it is. Let me use my binos quickly. What have we got there? Looks like a tawny eagle that is flying off in that direction. But anyway, all these vultures that are dropping down, look like they are dropping quickly, and normally when you see if there's a carcass where there's lions about, generally the vultures will kind of land on the tops of the trees. These guys are just bombing straight down and landing on the ground, which normally means that there's no other predator around. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that buffalo died from the buffalo herd that came past from Vuyatela camp. This time of the year we do get a lot of buffalo that do die from various reasons. Old, sick, condition is very, very bad given that we're at the end of winter, the dry season. We've just had a cold snap. It often is a very, very, very big cause of buffalo dying if they're in a weakened condition. So I think that's what the case is, and that's why James is trying to head in that direction pretty quickly. Unfortunately, I mean, even if we were Usain Bolt and sprinted there, I don't think we would have made it in the time frame. It's quite far north of where we actually are at the moment. It's much closer to the sort of fire break before sort of cut line area. I can actually hear James coming. James, you're going to have to use more speed than that. Let's watch him come past. Let's see, here we go, Sebi's coming. Look at him. Look at the form that this racing driver shows. We're going to see him round a bend shortly. We'll just stay here and watch him go past us. Now here he comes. You can hear changing down as he goes into the corners. There's some acceleration. Don't miss the turn, James. Don't miss the turn. No, he's got it all under control. That's an experienced veteran right there. That's veterans racing is what we're seeing there. Did you see the little red V on the side of the car for veteran? Anyway, as he goes off to go investigate what the vultures are doing, let's send you back across to Brent and the Nkuhuma Pride.
Well, not as much interest as there was a little while ago, but some more... oh, excuse me. Some more females are starting to come towards this direction as well. Wildebeest probably a couple of 100 meters away. There's Amber Eyes leading those three in the front there. So from what I've seen so far, I think there's one adult female missing. It's difficult to see because they've been quite spread out. Hello, lion. That is very close to my leg. One of the females just came right next to the car here. Oh, there's the next. Hello, big girl. Isn't that awesome? There's one more coming, Dave. Hi. You go try catch a wildebeest for breakfast. You don't really understand how massive lions are till they walk that close to you. Even a big lioness like this, there's just huge amounts of power there. That's 4 adult females. 3, yeah, including the one on top. 4 adult females. And I don't know, I haven't seen a 5th adult female. Maybe that is what is missing. One of the 2 that is missing is another adult. No. Actually, I think all 5 adult females, because the one with the wounded leg is here. So all 5 adult females are here. Okay, it seems like James has caught up to where the vultures are.
We've got a heartwarming scene here, simply because there are so many vultures. I haven't seen so many vultures since I've been at Djuma. Now they're on the ground here, and I'm sorry for the bad signal again. I'm not sure why this car is not behaving. Something has died around here, there, on the ground there. You see them all? That's fantastic stuff. Now, we are going to drive in there because I want to see what it is. I can't see what it is. And I think something's chasing them off. We didn't do it, so now we can go in. And we've got a little bit of time left to drive, but we can extend just until we can see what this thing is. whatever's died here. There, leopard. Leopard, birthday leopard. I suspect this leopard is scavenging. I'm pretty sure it's one of our friends. It looks like Hosanna to me. That's why they came up off the ground. It is Hosanna. And he was attracted in exactly the same way that we were. And here are the remnants of what he came to see. Not sure why he's disappearing now. So that's what died. That's an impala. Definitely an impala. That doesn't look to me like it was killed by lions. I have no idea what on earth would have killed that. There goes the leopard. He's wandering down through the bush. I'm sure he's been attracted here by the vultures. But I don't know that... I've really got no idea what on earth killed this thing, because where it is I don't know. It's obviously not around here because of the vultures, and a gorgeous tawny eagle. Look at that beautiful pale-form tawny eagle there. Just up above us there. That's really stunning. So I can only think that this must have been killed. I don't know what killed it. The rib cage is still there. Been here for a while. No idea. All right, let us roll credits. What a lovely picture. All right, everybody. We will see you this afternoon, of course, on this, the 23rd of October 2018. We'll try and unpack what happened here then, perhaps. Thank you for your questions and comments, for your patience with my terrible signal. We'll see you later. Until then, bye-bye.